Chapter 2903. Ji Tianqing, a first-level divine monarch. When he unleashed his strongest power, he was actually comparable to a seventh-stage realm upper divine monarch. Such an outcome was truly world-shocking. Anyone in the divine world would find it unbelievable. Even Ji Tianqing himself found it unbelievable. But this was the truth. Because before he broke through to the divine monarch realm, he had strengthened himself to the limit of the divine god realm. This was because he had laid the most solid foundation in the divine god realm. In addition, he was the reincarnation of a divine king and had the cultivation and battle experience of a divine king. Once he entered the divine monarch realm, he could master all skills and communicate with heaven and earth. Moreover, he had merged with the five elements world and his power was endless. Under such circumstances, everything was as it should be. Damn it! He didn't use his full strength. How is this possible? He hadn't broken through to the divine monarch realm a month ago. Lord Kenshin looked up at Ji Tianqing, his eyes widened in shock and his body trembled. He was shocked, angry and at the same time, scared. He couldn't see through his opponent at all and couldn't imagine how many trump cards he had. Lord God Giant Ape's expression was ugly and cold sweat broke out on his back. He shook his head and said, "How could such a shocking expert appear in the small green mountain city? No wonder fifth elder and fourth elder were killed and the city lord's manor was flattened by him. Such a monstrous divine lord powerhouse is also as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns when looking across the entire divine kingdom." When he said this, Lord God Giant Ape had already admitted defeat in his heart. Ji Tianqing's mystery and his domineering aura had crushed Lord God Giant Ape. He admitted that he wasn't much stronger than Fourth Elder. Fourth Elder and Yuan Qingkong were killed by Ji Tianqing. Now, he was also injured by Ji Tianqing and trapped in the sword formation. Soon, he would follow in Fourth Elder's footsteps. Thinking of this, Lord God Giant Ape quietly looked at Lord Kenshin and asked, "Left Guardian, the experts we brought are almost all dead. Can we still complete this mission? Why don't we preserve our strength and watch from the sidelines?" Lord God Giant Ape was as big as a mountain, but he wasn't stupid. Seeing that the situation was bad, he wanted to withdraw from the battle and watch from the sidelines. Anyway, it wasn't only Blood Sword sect that wanted to kill Ji Tianqing, there was also Princess Tianfeng. As long as they spread the news, Princess Tianfeng's men would chase after Ji Tianqing and kill him in a frenzy. How could Lord Kenshin not understand Lord God Giant Ape's thoughts? However, as the left protector, he had come with a mission from the sect master. Before he set off, he had made a military order. He swore solemnly that he would take Ji Tianqing's head and return triumphantly. The sect master had high hopes for him and even rewarded him with a secret treasure. The right custodian and the other three elders were aware of the matter, and were secretly observing him. Once he completed the mission, not only would he have made a great contribution, but he would also be able to restore the reputation of the Blood Sword sect and restore its prestige. And now, if he were to retreat with his tail between his legs, not only would he be ridiculed by the right guardian protector and the three elders, but he would also turn Blood Sword sect into a laughingstock. One of the 6 great sects of Divine Kingdom couldn't even deal with a nameless consecrator. Once this news spread in the Divine Kingdom, the Blood Sword sect's reputation would be swept to the ground, and their prestige would plummet. Even the backer of the Blood Sword sect would lose face and be thoroughly disappointed, right? Thinking of this, Heart Sword Divine Lord shook his head firmly. "Giant Ape, we have indeed underestimated this kid's strength and methods. However, we can't retreat. We can't afford to lose face like this." Lord God Giant Ape's face was bitter. He could only nod. However, he was cursing inwardly, "We can't even keep our lives. Why do we still care about face? Those bastards from the Blood Sword sect don't care about our lives at all. Every time they want to commit crimes, they use us as cannon fodder." Lord God Giant Ape wasn't a disciple of Blood Sword sect, but the leader of a second-rate force. The 90 black-clothed experts he had brought with him were the elites under his command. They were the cornerstones of his gang. It was because he had inadvertently offended the Blood Sword sect over 200 years ago, and had suffered the Blood Sword sect's crazy revenge. As a result, in order to survive and preserve the strength of his gang, he could only pledge his loyalty to Blood Sword sect. Over the past 200 years, he had worked hard for Blood Sword sect, doing the dirty work of killing people and plundering. Although he had obtained many benefits, the gang's manpower had dwindled day by day. Now, even the last 90 elites had been buried. He had practically become a general without an army. He wasn't that useful to Blood Sword sect anymore. He was secretly on guard. Could it be that Heart Sword Divine Lord insisted on not retreating because he wanted him to be cannon fodder? Thinking of this, Lord God Giant Ape's mood became more and more irritable. Damn it! If not for the fear of Blood Sword sect's revenge, would have turned around and left. Lord God Giant Ape frowned and cursed inwardly. At this time, Lord Kenshin took out an ancient black book from his interspatial ring. The book was as thick as a brick, but it was crudely damaged and had several holes. Even so, it still emitted an ice-cold black light and rippled with a mysterious and powerful aura. Lord Kenshin carefully held the damaged book and said with a solemn expression, "Giant Ape, this is an ancient divine item bestowed to me by the sect master, the Black Death Heavenly Book. Although it's damaged and its power is greatly reduced, it's still a supreme divine item. However, it was a monarch-level top-grade divine artifact after all. Even if it could only unleash 20% of its power, it could still kill a middle-level divine lord. Do your best to delay that brat. I will use this secret treasure to kill him in one fell swoop." As he spoke, Lord Kenshin formed a divine art with both hands, using a secret technique to activate his divine power and pour it into the Black Death Heavenly Book. Lord God Giant Ape's eyes lit up with a trace of hope. Black Death Heavenly Book. A supreme divine item? Good. Don't worry, Left Protector. I will protect you. Let's work together and defeat the enemy in one move. If he was bound to lose, of course he would have selfish motives and wanted to escape at the last moment. But if Lord Kenshin could turn the situation around, he was naturally willing to take the risk. If he succeeded, he would have made a great contribution and would be appreciated by the Blood Sword sect. He might even be able to use this contribution to become the 6th elder of the Blood Sword sect. That would be a great gain. Roar. Demonic Berserk Fist. Lord God Giant Ape roared as golden light blossomed from his body, condensing the image of a giant ape 3,000 meters tall behind him. The image of a giant ape with a majestic body and a ferocious aura was an ancient divine beast, the heaven-reaching ape. It had the power to pluck the stars and seize the moon. His eyes were crimson red, and like a mad demon, he threw 108,000 punches at Ji Tianqing. Ha ha ha, a mantis trying to stop a chariot. High up in the sky, Ji Tianqing sneered coldly as he looked at the golden fist radiance that covered the sky and covered the earth. Sword of Daytime. He formed a sword seal with both hands, forming a divine seal and thrusting it down at Lord God Giant Ape. Instantly, all the divine power within 100,000 miles was absorbed by him, condensing into a dazzling light as bright as the sun. The sacred golden light pierced through heaven and earth, space, and time, instantly passing through the 108,000 fists before exploding in front of Lord God Giant Ape. Boom! Chapter 2904. With a deafening explosion, the giant ape divine lord was drowned by the blazing divine light. It was as if a golden sun had exploded in front of his chest. In an instant, it expanded into a 10-mile mushroom cloud that soared into the sky. The power that could destroy heaven and earth destroyed his divine body without holding back. His god body was like ice and snow under the scorching sun. It melted quickly and disappeared without a trace. The only thing that could be preserved was his godhead. But it was also blasted into pieces, a dozen fragments that were carried away by the golden light and flew in all directions. The 5th level Divine Lord Giant Ape Divine Lord had fallen just like that. This result was within Ji Tianqing's expectations. After killing the Giant Ape Divine Lord in one move, he immediately turned to look at Heart Kenshin. He saw that Heart Kenshin had already retreated to the edge of the heaven-punishing sword formation, his back against the 5-colored wall of light. His eyes were tightly shut, and his body emitted a bloody light. His hands were forming seals as he activated the Black Death Heavenly Book with all his might. The cold, pitch-black ancient book floated in front of him, shining with a soul-stirring black light. The black light was expanding at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it had expanded to 10 miles, 20 miles, 30 miles. The ancient book had already been opened, and the tattered pages were flipping. Streaks of dark red and purple blood light flew out from the pages of the book and merged with the black light. The dark, cold light contained an endless aura of death. Bloody dragons that contained violent killing intent swam within the Black Death Heavenly Book. Death to those who seek life, life to the dead. Finally, Heart Kenshin's power erupted to the limit, activating the full power of the Black Death Heavenly Book. His tone was cold and emotionless as he naturally roared these words. As his voice sounded, the Black Death Heavenly Book moved out like a bottomless abyss, crushing toward Ji Tianqing. Whoosh! The Black Death Heavenly Book streaked across the sky, swallowing thousands of 5-colored sword lights along the way. Wherever it passed, all divine power, laws, and light were swallowed by the Black Death Heavenly Book. The mysterious Black Death Heavenly Book displayed its terrifying power. In fact, the power of the Black Death Heavenly Scripture was not limited to this. If not for the seal of the heaven-destroying sword formation, that ball of black death light with a radius of 100 miles would have swept through the heavens and earth without any hindrance. Wherever the Black Death divine light covered, mountains and rivers collapsed, all living beings withered, and even the divine power of heaven and earth was devoured. A city and millions of civilians would also be corroded into black ashes. When the Black Death divine light destroyed countless living beings, its size and power would rapidly increase, becoming even more unstoppable. Thus, the Black Death Heavenly Tome was a forbidden artifact in the primordial era. Once this thing appeared in the world, it would cause monstrous slaughter and create numerous purgatories of death. It was truly vicious and overbearing to the extreme. Even though Kenshin had used up too much of his divine power, his body was weak, and his face was as pale as paper. However, when he saw that the Black Death Heavenly Scripture was still so powerful, he felt very gratified. Damn you little bastard, you're dead now. Although the Black Death God Light will devour you until nothing is left. This monarch has no way to take your head and report to the sect master. However, if I can get rid of you and make you die in despair and fear, this monarch's mission will be completed. Kenshin thought silently, his eyes flashing with a cold, venomous light. Whoosh! In the next instant, the Black Death divine light swept across the 300 miles of sky and swallowed Ji Tianqing's figure. He also realized that he was in extreme danger, and a hint of fear flashed across his eyes. At this critical moment, he didn't have time to cast a spell to save himself. He only cared about saving Ji Ku, White Dragon, and Black Dragon. He used his fastest speed to put Ji Ku, White Dragon, and Black Dragon into the Divine Pagoda. Ji Ku and the others were safe, but he was drowned by the Black Death divine light. Whoosh! In an instant, his 300-meter-tall golden body was completely devoured by the Black Death divine light. Even his protective divine light couldn't resist the Black Death divine light at all and was directly devoured. Any defensive means were useless in front of the Black Death divine light. It seemed that Ji Tianqing couldn't resist and was about to be corroded into ashes by the Black Death divine light. Kenshin looked at this scene with a cold smile on his face. He was in an extremely good mood and felt very relieved. However, at this critical moment, a voice suddenly rang out. Ji Tianqing, who had returned to his original form, suddenly waved his hands and created a huge black vortex. Whoosh! That black vortex with a radius of 10 miles was also as black as ink, mysterious and cold. The vortex blocked in front of Ji Tianqing and released a terrifying devouring power, crazily devouring the Black Death Divine Light. Whoosh! The indestructible Black Death Divine Light couldn't show any power when it met the black vortex. It was like endless seawater crazily rushing into the vortex, unable to make any waves. In the blink of an eye, 30% of the Black Death Divine Light within 100 miles was devoured. 3 breaths later, the Black Death Divine Light was completely devoured, not leaving a single drop. Ji Tianqing's figure appeared once more, standing in the sky unscathed. He withdrew his hands with a satisfied expression and looked mockingly at Kenshin. His lips curled into a disdainful sneer. "Is that all you've got?" Divine Lord Heartsword was dumbfounded. They stared at Ji Tianqing with their mouths agape. Their hearts were filled with shock, and their emotions were in turmoil. What secret art did he use? How is this possible? Heartsword God roared in his heart. He was filled with indignation and anger. The Black Death Heavenly Book was the strongest divine item in his possession. It was also his only hope of turning defeat into victory and killing Ji Tianqing. But he never would have thought that the Black Death Divine Light would be so easily neutralized without being able to hurt Ji Tianqing at all. How could this be? Such a heavy blow caused Divine Lord Heartsword to lose his mind. His face turned paler and his aura turned chaotic. At this moment, Ji Tianqing teleported over with the Heaven Burier sword in his hand and swung his sword. God Punisher. The dazzling 5-colored sword slashed toward Kenshin's head with the power of 40 kinds of laws. The peerlessly terrifying sword intent suppressed his mind, causing him to be terrified to the extreme. He was already weak. It was too late for him to use the Black Death Heavenly Book and release the Black Death Divine Light to block. At this moment of life and death, he instinctively used his divine sense to control the Black Death Heavenly Book to block above his head. Swish! The 2 palm-sized Black Death Heavenly Books instantly expanded to a radius of 30 meters. It was like a black light barrier that protected Heartsword Divine Lord. Boom! There was a thunderous explosion. The God Punisher sword slashed the Black Death Heavenly Book. Overflowing divine light burst out, mixed with black fragments that filled the sky. The Black Death Heavenly Book disappeared. It was torn to shreds by the giant sword, turning into thousands of pieces of black paper that burned in the 7-colored divine light and turned to ashes. Even though the Black Death Heavenly Book blocked the God Punisher sword, Kenshin wasn't injured. But when he saw the Black Death Heavenly Book being destroyed with his own eyes, his eyes widened. Endless grief and indignation surged in his heart, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Pfft! A bloody mist filled the sky. It was a ghastly sight. Chapter 2905. My Black Death Heavenly Book is gone just like that. Heart Kenshin's eyes were lifeless as he muttered in a daze. That was a top-grade monarch divine artifact that had been passed down since ancient times. It was also one of the top treasures of the Blood Sword sect. The sect master had just given it to him not long ago, and he had yet to completely refine it. He had yet to discover its full power. This was the first time he had used it. Not only had it not been effective, but it had also been destroyed by Ji Tianqing's sword. How could there be such a grievance? Where could he reason with? Heart Kenshin was devastated, and his heart was filled with sorrow and despair. At this moment, he suddenly felt some regret. If he had known that this Tianqing was so monstrous, he would not have taken the initiative to ask the sect master for help. This child's strength and methods were definitely not something a mid-level divine lord could match. Perhaps only the sect master himself could defeat him. While Heart Kenshin was in a daze, Ji Tianqing once again swung his sword. Burial of Heaven. Another full-power sword slash. The 3,000-meter-long five-colored sword contained 46 types of law energy. It slashed toward Heart Kenshin's head. This time, without the Black Death Heavenly Book to block, Heart Kenshin was in despair. He could only ignite his god blood and unleash the last of his potential to release 18 blood-red swords. Whoosh! 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 The 18 swords instantly formed a sword net that protected him. Boom! The heaven-burying sword carried supreme divine might as it slashed into the net of swords. A thunderous boom erupted and shook the universe. Amidst the loud noise, the blood-red sword net was torn to shreds, and dark red fragments scattered in all directions. Heart Kenshin was sent flying, and a 2-foot-long gully appeared on his chest. Blood gushed out. Just a little bit more and he would have been split into 2 halves by this sword. After flying for 100 miles in the sky, he finally fell into the sword formation. After suffering such a heavy injury, he twitched in pain, blood spurting out of his nose and mouth. Before he could regain his composure, Ji Tianqing teleported over and slashed down with his sword. Rising sword. It was as if the sword had come from beyond the heavens, carrying with it a peerlessly elegant sword will, and it easily shattered Lord Kenshin's heart. The sword light was like a thunderbolt breaking through the sky, flashing and disappearing in a flash. Heart Kenshin, Kuen's body also disintegrated, blood and flesh splattering everywhere. A diamond-shaped godhead covered in cracks flew out from the bloody mist. Ji Tianqing waited patiently for the rabbit. With a wave of his hand, he caught the rabbit. He clasped his palms together and unleashed an incomparably terrifying power, crushing the godhead into pieces. Kacha kacha, with a crisp shattering sound, Heart Kenshin, Kuen died. The battle was over. Ji Tianqing put away the quintessence fragment and began to clean up the battlefield. Everything within a radius of 500 miles was covered by the sword formation. 100 black-clothed experts, the giant ape Kazuko Kenshin, Kuen had all died in this area. The 5-colored divine light in the sky gradually dissipated, and the ground below had already turned into ruins. The skeletons and godhead fragments of the giant ape and the 100 experts were scattered among the ruins. Although the ruins were messy and the small godhead fragments were mostly buried by the ruins, they were very difficult to find. However, those godhead fragments all contained abundant divine power and the power of laws. Falling into the ruins, they were very conspicuous like fireflies in the dark night. Ji Tianqing spread out his divine sense, covering 500 miles of the ruins, and quickly found those godhead fragments. 100 breaths later, he found over 1,000 godhead fragments and put them all into his space ring. Although he had already reached the Divine Lord realm, devouring those godhead fragments wouldn't increase his strength by much. However, what he needed the most was the various laws contained within those godhead fragments. After doing all this, Ji Tianqing was about to cast a spell to remove the heaven-destroying sword formation. However, his consciousness suddenly detected a powerful divine power approaching from the north at an extremely fast speed. He raised an eyebrow and released his divine sense to investigate the situation in the north. Then, he saw a divine ship speeding towards him in the sky 5,000 miles to the north. The pitch-black divine ship didn't have any insignia or markings. However, Ji Tianqing immediately recognized it. It was the divine ship from before, the experts under the command of Princess Tianfeng. Haha, these fellows aren't stupid. Even though the blood sword sect has shaken them off, they still stubbornly chased after me. Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a sneer, a playful expression on his face. Since you insist on sending yourselves to death, I'll fulfill your wish. An idea appeared in his mind, and the playful expression on his face became even more pronounced. Thus, he didn't remove the heaven-destroying sword formation. Instead, he urged the sword formation to operate faster. Within the sword formation, tens of thousands of giant swords were condensed, releasing resplendent divine light as they crisscrossed and intertwined. The sword formation, which had just calmed down, was once again filled with intense sword light. Ji Tianqing took off his hair bun and messed up his hair. He passed through the five-colored light wall of the sword formation and hurriedly flew into the sky, looking like he was fleeing. At the same time, the Black Divine Ship was only 300 miles away from the heaven-destroying sword formation. Within the Divine Ship's cockpit, two black-armored Divine Sovereigns wearing black iron masks were looking at the sword formation with shining eyes. 20,000 miles away, I can sense the surging divine power here. There are experts fighting a great battle here. As I expected, this is the place. I've finally found them. Qi Liuxing, you guessed right. The Blood Sword Sect's people have chased after them and intercepted the City Lord of Tranquility. The two sides are currently engaged in an intense battle. Look, they've even used the sword formation. You can imagine how intense the battle is. I'm certain that the City Lord of Tranquility's identity has already been exposed by the Blood Sword Sect. We've come at the right time. They're in the midst of a fierce battle. We have a chance to pick up some scraps. Despot and Qi Liuxing discussed in low voices, their voices filled with complacency and anticipation. At that moment, the two of them suddenly saw a flash of light from the sword formation in front of them. Then, a human youth in a white robe and covered in blood escaped from the sword formation. Perhaps because he was terrified, he flew over in a panic, as if he was fleeing for his life. This human youth's hair was disheveled, and his face was covered in blood. He seemed to be in a sorry state with his injuries. However, Despot and Qi Liuxing instantly recognized him. He was the City Lord of Tranquility. Their eyes immediately lit up, and they looked at each other with complacent sneers. Ha ha ha, Qi Liuxing, your foresight is truly divine. That brat was surrounded by the Blood Sword Sect and was already an arrow at the end of its flight. He barely managed to escape the sword formation. Now, we can finally pick up some scraps. Yes. No matter how crafty the Blood Sword Sect is, how could they hide from my divine foresight? As for that brat, he can only blame himself for being too unlucky to have delivered himself to our doorstep. As they spoke, the two of them no longer dared to waste any more time and flew out of the divine ship. Swish! Swish! In the next instant, the two of them appeared high in the sky, holding a saber and a sword. They had sinister smiles on their faces as they faced Ji Tianqing. Little bastard, this is called not taking the path to heaven, but barging into hell instead. At this point, you still have the extravagant hope of escaping. Obediently kneel down and accept your death. Chapter 2906. Despot's and Qi Liuxing's voices exploded in the sky. Ji Tianqing, who was running for his life, only looked back at the sword array, as if he was afraid that someone would chase after him. He didn't even look at the sky in front of him, as if he didn't notice the arrival of the divine warship. He was shocked when he suddenly heard the voices of the two divine emperors. He quickly turned his head to the north. He was obviously stunned when he saw the two divine emperors in black armor and the divine warship. His face was covered by his long hair and his expression couldn't be seen. But Despot and Qi Liuxing could imagine that his expression must be very interesting. Ha ha ha. That guy must be scared out of his wits. He just escaped from the tiger's den and now he's in the wolf's den. He must be desperate. Similar thoughts flashed through their minds at the same time. Ji Tianqing seemed to come back to his senses and quickly turned around and flew to the west. Little B****, where are you going? You'll definitely die today. Don't make any more pointless struggles. Despot and Qi Liuxing shouted proudly. They waved their swords and started to chase after him. The black godly warship also charged towards Ji Tianqing like a bolt of lightning at its fastest speed. At that moment, Despot and Qi Liuxing were full of excitement and anticipation. They could even imagine the scene of Ji Tianqing's body being dismembered. Not only the two divine emperors, but also the 100 black-armored experts in the divine warship felt that victory was in their hands. Everyone thought that as long as they caught up with Ji Tianqing, they could easily capture and kill him. There wouldn't be any difficulty and there wouldn't be any accidents. However, no one expected that disaster would befall the next moment. Despot, Qi Liuxing and the divine worship quickly caught up with Ji Tianqing, who was seriously injured and on the verge of death. When they were 10 miles away, Ji Tianqing suddenly turned around and raised his palms, shooting out endless black light. Swoosh! Swoosh! The two pitch-black, ice-cold black lights of death instantly spread out to a radius of 100 miles, enveloping the entire area. Despot, Qi Liuxing and the entire divine worship were drowned by the black lights of death. Even now, everyone was still smiling coldly and full of confidence. In their eyes, this was just Ji Tianqing's final struggle, and it didn't have much power. However, the black armor worn by Despot and Qi Liuxing was instantly corroded by the black light of death and turned into ashes. The black divine worship had also been corroded to the point where it was riddled with holes. Only then did everyone realize that something was wrong, and they all let out roars of fear and unease. Be careful. There's something strange about this black light. Retreat. However, everyone was drowned by the black light of death. Within a radius of 100 miles, it was a world of black light. Even if they wanted to retreat, how could they possibly retreat? Chi, chi, chi. Along with a series of soft noises, Despot and Qi Liuxing's bodies were corroded with countless holes. Even their limbs were gone. The black divine worship completely collapsed, and black ash filled the sky. The hundreds of black-armored experts in the divine worship only struggled for 2 breaths of time before they were reduced to ashes. Everyone's bodies were destroyed. Only the 5-colored divine sparks were left, and they fell into the black light. Even though the divine sparks were stronger than the body. But they only had the strength of a celestial god. How could they resist the power of the Black Death divine light? That's right. That black light that blotted out the sky was the Black Death divine light released by the Black Death Sutra. Previously, Ji Tianqing used the power of the heaven-mending pearl to cast the devouring divine ability and devoured the Black Death divine light within a radius of 100 miles. That power was too strong, and also too vicious and overbearing. Ji Tianqing didn't have time to refine it at that time, so he stored it in the heaven-mending pearl. He originally planned to find time to refine it after the battle ended. But he didn't expect that Despot, Qi Liuxing, and the others would catch up right after the battle ended. Therefore, he came up with a plan to use the Black Death divine light to deal with everyone. Along with the cracking sounds that kept ringing out, everyone's divine sparks also cracked one after another, quickly decaying into dust. In a short span of 3 breaths, the 100 black-armored experts were all dead. Not even divine sparks were left behind. Only Despot and Qi Liuxing were still alive, but they were also seriously injured and extremely weak. Their divine bodies were still being eroded and weathered. After their limbs disappeared, their torsos and heads also turned into black ash and quickly disappeared. Finally, 10 breaths of time passed. The Black Death divine light that blotted out the sky finally exhausted its power and gradually dissipated. The heaven and earth within a radius of a few hundred miles had become a barren land, like a dark and gray desert. Despot and Qi Liuxing's bodies were completely destroyed, leaving only their divine sparks that were full of cracks. After suffering such serious injuries, their strength had decreased greatly, and they were already arrows at the end of their flight. At this time, Ji Tianqing's voice came from not far away. "Oh. I didn't expect the 2 of you to be so tenacious. You actually didn't die in the Black Death divine light." Obviously, Ji Tianqing didn't expect Despot and Qi Liuxing to still be alive. Despot and Qi Liuxing heard the voice and looked back at the same time. They saw Ji Tianqing, whose white robe was stained with blood and whose hair was disheveled, standing calmly in the sky. At close range, Despot and Qi Liuxing discovered that he wasn't injured at all, and his aura was still unfathomable. There was a faint sneer on his handsome face, and his eyes were still as deep and vast as before. He didn't look injured at all. Despot and Qi Liuxing immediately reacted and roared in their hearts. We've been tricked. He's tricking us. He's not injured at all. Despot and Qi Liuxing couldn't believe and accept this result. They didn't have time to think about it. Ji Tianqing had fought with the people of the Blood Sword sect. How could he be unharmed? They only had one thought at this time. Run! Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 5-colored divine sparks streaked across the sky, flying to the east and west respectively. They were very smart. If they ran separately, at least one of them would survive. Unfortunately, they still underestimated Ji Tianqing's strength. Seal! Ji Tianqing didn't move from his spot. He only raised his palms and shouted coldly. Instantly, the space within 100 miles froze. The 2 divine sparks froze in the sky as if they were frozen. They couldn't escape, nor could they move. After reaching the Divine Lord realm, Ji Tianqing's control of the law of space had reached an even more exquisite level. Whoosh! Ji Tianqing shot out 2 golden lights that wrapped around the 2 divine sparks and pulled them back to him. He grabbed one of the divine sparks with each hand and captured Despot and Qi Liuxing. You two must be very curious about who I am. Ji Tianqing looked at the 2 divine sparks and said with a smile, to tell you the truth, this lord is Tianqing, a consecrator of the Qi family. Hearing this, the 2 divine sparks trembled. Clearly, they were very emotional. Ji Tianqing smiled and said, Are you still confused? Aren't the people of the Blood Sword sect blocking this monarch's path and fighting with this monarch? Why didn't the people of the Blood Sword sect appear and rush out of the sword formation to kill me? As he spoke, he removed the heaven-vanquishing sword formation. There was nothing in the sky within a radius of 500 miles. Just before you arrived, this lord killed them all. The 2 divine sparks trembled again in extreme fear. Chapter 2907. The answer was already revealed. But Despot and Qi Liuxing were shocked until they were speechless, as if they were petrified. Even though they had long been mentally prepared and guessed that City Lord Shangning was Tianqing. They also knew that it was Tianqing who killed Yuan Qingkong and the 2 reverends. This Reverend Tianqing's strength and methods were very powerful and could not be underestimated. But Despot and Qi Liuxing were even clearer on how powerful Blood Sword sect's Left Protector and Giant Ape Divine Lord were. These 2 powerhouses joining hands was enough to match a 7th stage realm high-ranking Divine Lord. In their view, if Ji Tianqing could escape Blood Sword sect's encirclement, it would be very impressive. But the final result was simply too horrifying. Blood Sword sect's 100 experts, including the Left Protector and Giant Ape, were all killed off by Ji Tianqing. Furthermore, it was even in a short 15 minutes. This was simply too preposterous. Despot and Qi Liuxing's 3 views and understanding were overturned. The 2 of them were immersed in incomparable shock and were unable to recover for a long time. At this time, Ji Tianqing smiled and said, You guys must have thought that this lord concealed his strength previously. This lord is actually a high-ranking divine lord. Despot and Qi Liuxing did not follow up, tacitly agreeing with this view. That was the only reason that made sense. Unexpectedly, Ji Tianqing said with a ruminating smile, but unfortunately, you guys guessed wrong again. This lord just broke through to the Divine Lord realm not long ago and is now a first-level Divine Lord realm. Despot and Qi Liuxing were stunned once again. The 2 divine sparks did not move at all, as if they had lost the ability to think and move. One shocking secret after another popped out of Ji Tianqing's mouth, directly shocking the 2 of them silly. Their consciousness fell into a blank, crashing. At this time, Ji Tianqing sighed again and said, Sigh. You guys know too many secrets. You must die. Despot and Qi Liuxing finally recovered the ability to think, but they were speechless. Damn it! We were puzzled and secretly guessed these questions. But we didn't ask you. These secrets, it was you who wanted to reveal them, all right? You actually despise us for knowing too much and want to kill us to silence us. Can you be any more shameless? Despot and Qi Liuxing's consciousness were filled with such thoughts. They were filled with grief and indignation. However, this was no longer important. Ji Tianqing clenched his fists and pressed them down twice as if they were light. Crack! Crack! Despot and Qi Liuxing's godheads were instantly crushed. Two middle-level divine lords were crushed to death by Ji Tianqing just like this. Before he died, Qi Liuxing only had one thought in his mind. F***ck. If I had known that this brat was so heaven-defying, I wouldn't have tried to be smart and sent myself to a dead end. However, in Despot's consciousness, there was a different thought, and it was filled with resentment. Qi Liuxing, this idiot, thought that he was extremely smart, but in the end, he got us all killed. If I had known earlier, I would have been even more stupid. If I hadn't followed the blood sword sect here, nothing would have happened. Unfortunately, these two fellow sufferers no longer had the chance to communicate. If there was a netherworld in this world, the two of them would probably have a big fight on their way to the Yellow Springs. A moment later, Ji Tianqing left the ruins and continued on his way. He then summoned the Black Dragon as his mount and had the White Dragon accompany him to protect him. Black Dragon flew across the sky at lightning speed, heading straight for the south. White Dragon stood on the dragon's back, using divine sense to investigate the surrounding situation, maintaining vigilance at all times. Ji Tianqing sat cross-legged in meditation, holding over 10 godhead fragments in his hands, silently refining them. Relying on the Devour divine ability, he quickly refined the god power within the fragments, stripping away the divine Tao laws within. As time passed, his strength continued to accumulate and increase. The number of divine Tao laws he grasped was also rapidly increasing. One day later, his strength reached the critical point and was about to break through to the second stage realm. The number of divine Tao laws he grasped had also reached 84. At this time, Black Dragon had already left Green Mountain City and entered the borders of Wind Night City. Continuing to fly south, he still had to pass through 4 cities before he could enter Heavenly Wind City. As for Heavenly Snow City, it was even further south. With Black Dragon's flying speed, it would take at least 10 days to reach. Late at night. The night sky was cold. Cold winds howled high up in the sky. A waning moon hung in the sky. The stars that filled the sky were faintly discernible under the cover of the clouds. At this time, Ji Tianqing finally broke through the bottleneck after 12 attempts and hard work. Swoosh! Following his entire body radiating with resplendent golden light, a sacred and dignified aura burst forth. He finally broke through to the second-level Divine Lord realm. Vigorous and vast divine power surged and rose within his body, stirring up the sound of rolling thunder. His outer appearance did not change, but his strength increased around 6 times, his foundation even deeper. Huff, Ji Tianqing revolved and regulated his breathing for an hour before ending cultivation, letting out a long breath of turbid air. At this time, White Dragon who was quietly waiting by the side hurriedly bowed and said with a look of joy, "Congratulations to Master for breaking through again, successfully recovering to the second-level Divine Lord realm." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said with a gentle expression, "Currently, I'm still a low-ranked Divine Lord. Breaking through realms is relatively simple and still very smooth. When I become a high-ranked Divine Lord in the future, it will be very difficult to break through again." But White Dragon did not believe it and said expectantly, "Master's current talent and strength foundation are more than 10 times better than back then. Not to mention recovering to a high-ranked Divine Lord, even recovering to the Divine King realm is still easy and simple. In this disciple's view, at most in another dozen years, you will be able to return to the Divine King realm and explore the entire boundless heaven continent." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and did not continue this topic. In this day, did you discover anything unusual? White Dragon's mouth curled into a smile and said in a playful tone, in the previous battle, Master killed everyone. At that time, the commotion of the battle was too great, and we were secretly monitored. Therefore, the news will spread very quickly. Blood Sword Sect and Princess Tianfeng's people should have received the news long ago. In this day, when we passed by the vicinity of Windy Night City, several groups of people secretly followed and investigated. Apart from them, no one dared to approach, let alone attack us. Ji Tianqing nodded to show that he understood and analyzed calmly. In the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom, high-ranked divine lords are the top experts. Only the masters of the 6 major sects, the monarch, the 2 dukes, and the royal family's consecrators have such strength. Those top experts are proud of their status and will not act rashly. Therefore, the strongest people that Blood Sword Sect and Princess Tianfeng can mobilize are only 6th rank and 5th rank divine lords. I killed all of them yesterday, so Blood Sword Sect and Princess Tianfeng must be shocked. They realize that my strength is far beyond their expectations and will not act rashly. Otherwise, they will send a few more divine lords to their deaths. I think that they should be discussing countermeasures, mobilizing people, and scheming something. The next time they act, it will be a thunderous blow and they will use all their strength. Chapter 2908. Ji Tianqing had already expected the actions of the Blood Sword Sect and Princess Tianfeng. It wasn't hard to figure out what they were thinking from their point of view. Even though he knew that an even more dangerous situation was coming, he was fearless. However, he was fearless, and he was confident that he could turn the situation around. Black Dragon continued on his way while he continued to refine the Godhead fragments to increase his strength and condense more laws. Late at night, Tianfeng Province City, which had a radius of 150 kilometers, was sleeping peacefully under the night sky. This ancient city with 10,000 years of history was located in the Tianbei wasteland. The surrounding tens of thousands of kilometers was a wasteland without any mountains or forests. Thus, the northern wind from the setting sun ocean swept across the wasteland, causing sand and stones to fly. Even though this city looked somewhat desolate. In reality, the area around Tianfeng Province City was rich in metal ores. In addition, this main city was located in the middle of a dozen cities, so its geographical position was very important. Thus, when the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom was established 10,000 years ago, this city was designated as a county city to manage the 16 surrounding cities. Many experts, powerful factions, and merchant associations were stationed in Tianfeng Province City and spread to the surrounding cities. The city was very prosperous, with tall buildings and rows upon rows of houses. More than 4 million people lived in this county city. Located in the northern city district, the luxurious Princess Manor was still brightly lit. The guards and attendants in the manor were as relaxed and carefree as usual. From the inside to the outside, they exuded the noble and calm bearing of a 1,000-year-old clan. After all, the owner of this manor was one of the 36 princesses of the Divine Kingdom, the noble Count Qishan. Not to mention Tianfeng Province City, even in the surrounding cities, no one dared to be disrespectful to him. Even though many people had heard a rumor. A traitor had appeared in Qingshan City, a small coastal city in the north, and had dared to kill the Qingshan City Lord. The Qingshan City Lord had a close relationship with Count Qishan. Count Qishan was furious and swore to kill the traitor to avenge the Qingshan City Lord. But in the eyes of others, such a small matter wasn't worth worrying about. As long as Count Qishan gave the order, the traitor would die without a doubt. In the surrounding 50 million kilometers, no one dared to go against Count Qishan. At this moment, in the princess's study, 4 guards were guarding the door, and the door to the study was tightly shut. The room was dimly lit and quiet. A white-haired old man in a purple robe and a black cloak was leaning against a large wooden armchair. The old man was tall and sturdy, and his spirit was hale and hearty. His dignified square face was filled with the vicissitudes of life. His sunken eyes flickered with a cold light, deep and sharp. He leaned back in his chair and stared at the dark night outside the window. He was waiting and thinking. His right hand rested on the armrest of the chair, and his knuckles tapped lightly on the armrest, making a rhythmic sound. This white-haired elder was the leader of the Tianfeng Prefecture, the Tianfeng Prefecture Princess, Count Qishan. Even though Earl Qishan's expression was calm and his eyes were cold. However, the small subconscious movements of his right hand betrayed his inner state. Worry and anxiety. 20 hours ago. The 3 groups of spies under his command all returned with news one after another. He Ba, Qi Liuxing, and the hundreds of elite experts had all died in Wind Night City. Apart from that, the experts of Blood Sword sect had also been killed. When he first received this news, Count Qishan was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. He couldn't imagine that a small Qi family consecrator would have such terrifying means. Perhaps only a high divine lord would have such power. But why would a high divine lord with a noble status lower himself to be a consecrator of Azure Mountain City's Qi family? Count Qishan couldn't understand. However, the 3 groups of spies reported the same result, and he had to accept this fact. Thus, he calmly thought for a long time. He Ba and Qi Liuxing had both failed, so who else could kill that kid? He had more than 10 low divine lords under his command, and more than 800 elite experts. However, sending low divine lords to kill Tianqing was useless. Ordinary heavenly god experts were useless no matter how many of them there were. He could only send mid-divine lords to carry out the mission. However, He Ba and Qi Liuxing were dead, and he could only mobilize 3 mid-divine lords. Including himself, that was only 4 people. Even so, he still felt that it wasn't safe and that he had no chance of success. After all, Tianqing had not only killed He Ba and Qi Liuxing, but also the experts of Blood Sword sect. According to the reports of his spies, the leader of Blood Sword sect this time was the noble left protector. This made Count Qishan suspect that even if he personally led 3 mid-divine lords to kill Tianqing, he might not be able to return. Could it be that he could only admit defeat and give up on taking revenge on Tianqing? This thought had once appeared in Count Qishan's mind. However, he quickly rejected this idea. Because he couldn't afford to lose, and he couldn't afford to lose face. A dignified county lord actually couldn't do anything to a nobody. 2 of his generals had been killed, but he could only swallow his anger and not dare to take revenge. Once this news spread, his dignity as a county lord would be trampled underfoot. Moreover, He Ba and Qi Liuxing were only his vanguards. Even if these 2 generals died, he could still mobilize stronger forces. For example, the 5 aristocratic families in Tianfeng province all had Sir God realm experts. At this critical moment, as long as Count Qishan asked, the 5 aristocratic families would be willing to help. In any case, everyone had a tacit understanding. After the matter was settled, Count Qishan would make some concessions and give the 5 aristocratic families some benefits. For example, the Qing family had always wanted the South Wind Canyon, and the Du family had always been thinking about the Cloud Cup pool. The Shang family had sent many gifts, hoping to reduce the annual tax of 80 million. As for the Nangong family, they wanted to occupy a street in South City and transform it into a smithing workshop. Thinking of this, Count Qishan was full of energy and fighting spirit. Ha ha ha. A nameless nobody with no background wants to fight with this seat. Do you think that this kind of battle depends on strength? It's a battle of status and power. The entire Tianfeng city belongs to me, so don't even think about leaving my territory alive. Count Qishan muttered to himself, his body emitting a domineering aura as a sinister light flashed in his eyes. Swoosh! He finally made up his mind and said in a dignified tone, Huan Yu, go and inform the family heads of the 5 aristocratic families to come to the county lord's residence immediately. I have something to discuss with them. Originally, there was no one else in the study room other than him. However, as he finished speaking, a hoarse and deep voice sounded from the corner of the study room. County Lord, have you made up your mind? Huan Yu, who was hiding in the dark, was Count Qishan's trusted aide. He knew very well that Count Qishan and the 5 aristocratic families had always been in a competition. Since Count Qishan had asked the 5 aristocratic families for help, he had to make some sacrifices and concessions. Chapter 2909. Princess, you have been competing with the 5 aristocratic families for so many years. It took you more than 200 years to suppress the 5 aristocratic families and maintain the balance. Once you speak up tonight, the 5 aristocratic families will be even more powerful in the future. By then, it will be very difficult for you to suppress them and maintain the balance. Huan Yu was Count Qishan's right-hand man and also one of his brains. He did not want to see Count Qishan bow to the 5 aristocratic families in order to deal with Tianqing and destroy the balance in the county. Why don't you do it yourself? We will gather 4 middle-level godly lords, 8 low-level godly lords, and 500 elite experts. With such a powerful force, we will definitely be able to kill Tianqing and tear him into pieces. Huan Yu tried to persuade Count Qishan with a firm and confident tone. However, Count Qishan shook his head and said, "We have already failed once. That kid will definitely be on his guard and will not fall for it again. This time, we have to gather the strongest forces to kill that kid in one fell swoop. Only then can we avoid future troubles. Of course, I will do it myself. However, quality does not matter. I have to borrow the strength of the 5 aristocratic families. As for the godly lords under me, they have to preserve their strength. Otherwise, how can we keep the 5 aristocratic families in check in the future?" It was obvious that Count Qishan had already considered the consequences. In fact, he even predicted that there would be heavy casualties in this assassination attempt. He would rather use this opportunity to exhaust the 5 aristocratic families' strength than let his godly lords die in battle. Huan Yu guessed his thoughts and did not try to persuade him anymore. He only said worriedly, "Princess, if you use this opportunity to weaken the 5 aristocratic families' strength, they will definitely be on guard. If they react passively and push the blame to each other, won't it affect the overall situation?" Count Qishan said coldly, "If I don't go personally, those cunning bastards will definitely have their own plans. Therefore, I will personally lead the team. You will stay in the princess residence." Huan Yu was silent for a while before he said, "The princess residence is very safe. Nothing will happen. I will go with you. It will be safer." Count Qishan did not comment and did not reject him. Then, Huan Yu disappeared into the darkness and drifted away. Count Qishan also got up and walked out of the study. He entered a secret underground room and waited for the 5 aristocratic families' family heads to arrive. Time passed quickly. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The black dragon traveled continuously for 3 days and 3 nights before finally entering the North Heaven wasteland. After flying for another 50,000 miles, they would pass by the Tianfeng County. At this moment, night had already fallen. The black dragon gradually slowed down its flying speed and cautiously surveyed its surroundings. Ji Tianqing also ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. Through these 3 days of cultivation, his divine Tao foundation was already stable. He refined many more law fragments and condensed more than a dozen laws. Presently, the divine Tao laws he'd grasped had reached 100. "Teacher, we have arrived at the northern wasteland. Tianfeng City is just 50,000 miles away. Do we need to make a detour?" At this time, the white dragon bowed to Ji Tianqing and reported the current position to him. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said calmly, "Why should I avoid it? If Princess Tianfeng wanted to kill me, no matter how hard I tried to avoid her, she would still come after me. If he had been intimidated, he had already given up on the idea of revenge. Even if I flew over the Tianfeng County, she wouldn't dare to attack me. The white dragon nodded and said, I understand. Teacher, you don't want to waste time. You just want to cut the Gordian knot and end this quickly. Ji Tianqing nodded and didn't say anything. The white dragon reported again, originally, I also thought that after you killed those black-armored experts and destroyed the divine warship, Princess Tianfeng would retreat. Unfortunately, not only did she not give up on the idea of revenge, she even sent out 3 times the number of spies and scouts. In these 3 days, there were at least 30 groups of spies secretly spying on us. There were even a few groups of spies who didn't know what was good for them and followed us all the way. Since I had nothing to do, I took the time to kill 2 groups of spies. The rest of the spies saw that the situation was not good and retreated further away. Ji Tianqing frowned and sneered, that's the princess of a county, the earl of a divine kingdom. One of the 36 feudal officials of the blood flame divine kingdom with great power. I only killed 2 Sir gods under his command and killed over 100 experts, that's all. If she is so scared that she doesn't dare to take revenge, how can she continue to be a princess? The white dragon also sneered and nodded, Teacher, you are right. Ji Tianqing stood up and looked ahead at the seemingly calm wilderness under the night sky. If I am not wrong, Princess Tianfeng has already used her strongest force to set up an ambush in the wilderness not far from here. These 3 days are enough for them to set up a few monarch-level divine arrays and mobilize thousands of experts. The white dragon raised his eyebrows and asked, Teacher, since you are so confident, are we going to crush them directly? Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said with a smile, confidence doesn't mean arrogance. We still don't know how many people they have. If he barged in recklessly, wouldn't he be asking for trouble? Even if we win in the end, the process will be more difficult. The white dragon asked with interest, then what do you mean? Ji Tianqing revealed a wisp of a meaningful smile and said, when I refined those quintessence fragments earlier, I obtained a type of mirror image law. This law is very special. It can imitate any target 100% and there are almost no flaws. Although it is only a god-level law, it is not very powerful. But if we use it well, we will be able to achieve unexpected results. The white dragon suddenly understood and said with anticipation, I understand. Teacher, are you going to show them a scene of killing each other as an appetizer for the big battle? Ji Tianqing smiled and said, okay, you and the black dragon go into the divine pagoda and rest. After that, he put the white dragon and the black dragon into the divine pagoda. He was alone, hiding in the darkness and flying forward silently. At the same time, 20,000 miles behind him, a few experts who were secretly following him suddenly lost track of the black dragon's aura. The experts were stunned for a moment and quickly used their divine skills to search for the black dragon, the white dragon and Ji Tianqing. However, they could not find any trace of them at all. Ji Tianqing, the white dragon and the black dragon seemed to have disappeared into thin air. How could 2 living people and a black dragon suddenly disappear? The experts were shocked and quickly took out their communication jade slips to report the news to Princess Tianfeng. At this moment, Princess Tianfeng and Huan Yu were lying in ambush in the wilderness, patiently waiting for Ji Tianqing to walk into their trap. Chapter 29:10. 20,000 miles away from Tianfeng Province City. The wasteland, which was filled with rocks and weeds, looked the same as usual. However, in reality, there were 4 monarch-grade divine arrays set up here. They overlapped and covered a radius of 1,000 miles. The 4 arrays were all high-grade monarch-grade divine arrays and they were extremely powerful. There were arrays that could conceal one's aura. There was also an array that could confuse and trap people. There was also an array that could seal people and a powerful berserk thunder thousand swords array. At this moment, the 4 arrays were hidden and they did not reveal any divine power aura. Tianfeng Province Princess and Huanyu were hiding in the dark night sky. They were hiding in the clouds that were 10,000 feet above the ground. The two of them looked at the northern night sky quietly and waited for the arrival of the Black Dragon and Ji Tianqing. As for the people from the 5 aristocratic families, they were hiding around the array. 3 days ago, in the early morning, the 5 aristocratic families and Tianfeng Province Princess had discussed for more than 2 hours in a secret chamber. No one knew the contents and process of the 6 experts' secret conversation. However, in the end, the 5 aristocratic families agreed to help Tianfeng Province Princess set up an ambush outside the city to kill Ji Tianqing. Each aristocratic family would send 1 middle god and 100 heaven god experts to cooperate with Tianfeng Province Princess and listen to her orders. As for the Commandery Princess Tianfeng personally led 200 elite fighters and Huanyu followed her into battle. The manpower of the 6 great factions added together was 7 middle-level divine lords and 700 elite experts. With so many middle god experts and heaven god experts, they were extremely powerful. Even if a true high divine lord came, they would also be defeated and fall on the spot. He would not even have the chance to escape. Tianfeng Province Princess was satisfied with this arrangement and she was confident that she could kill Ji Tianqing. The 5 aristocratic families were also confident that they would win. At this moment, the middle god experts from the 5 aristocratic families each led 100 elites and were hiding around the array. The 200 elites from Tianfeng Province Princess were also hiding near the array. They were divided into 6 different directions and they were waiting for Ji Tianqing to come and die. However, at this moment, suddenly, a beam of spiritual light flew towards Princess Tianfeng from the clouds in the sky. Although the beam of spiritual light disappeared in a flash, Tianfeng Province Princess reacted quickly and immediately grabbed the communication jade slip. But this scene still could not escape the probing of a divine lord powerhouse. Apparently, Princess Jianfeng's hiding place had been exposed. He held the communication jade slip in his hand. His face was dark, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Damned idiot! Who is it that is sending me a message at this time? If Tianqing is already nearby, wouldn't I be exposed? As early as an hour ago, he had received news from his spies that Ji Tianqing was about to enter the wilderness. From then on, he ordered several groups of spies not to send any messages within 2 hours. But now, someone had actually disobeyed his orders and sent him a message. Infanta Tianfeng swore to herself that if the person who sent the message was not in a hurry, she would definitely kill him. When Huanyu, who was hiding in the darkness, saw that she was about to go berserk, he immediately sent a telepathic message to persuade her, "Princess, please calm down. That brat shouldn't be here yet. He might need some time. Furthermore, the scouts do not dare to disobey your orders." Something important must have happened and they had no choice but to send a message. Tianfeng Province Princess suppressed her anger and nodded silently. Then she read the message in the jade slip with her divine sense. The target entered the wilderness. After flying for thousands of miles, they suddenly disappeared. When Tianfeng Province Princess received the message, her body shook and her face stiffened. After a while, she came to herself and was shocked and furious. How could this be? There were spies watching them all the way. They entered the wilderness and were about to fall into the trap. How could they suddenly disappear? These damned idiots! How could they not keep an eye on such a big black dragon? Tianfeng Province Princess was very annoyed. She could not wait to kill all the spies to vent her anger. When she thought of Ji Tianqing, who was tens of thousands of miles away, suddenly disappearing without a trace, she became anxious. A bad premonition arose in his heart. At the same time, Ji Tianqing remained invisible as he traveled through the depths of the underground. Of course, he had seen the spiritual light that flashed in the night sky just now. He guessed that the spies must have panicked when he and the black dragon suddenly disappeared. That was why they sent a message to Tianfeng Province Princess. In other words, the dark cloud in the night sky was where Tianfeng Province Princess was hiding. Ji Tianqing did not go to find Tianfeng Province Princess. Tianfeng Province Princess was worried that her position would be exposed, so she must be very vigilant. At the same time, Ji Tianqing's divine sense detected that there were several large arrays in the wilderness, which covered a radius of thousands of miles. Outside the array, there were 6 groups of experts hiding in the depths of the earth. Therefore, he chose the group in the southeast and approached them quietly. They were from the Du family, which was an elixir business. The 100 elite experts were all dressed in black and wore masks on their faces. The leader of the group was a divine master of the Du family, a 5th heaven realm expert. The shelter of these people was the rock layer deep in the ground. The 100 experts were scattered in the rock layer, holding their breaths and not daring to move. Ji Tianqing sneaked into the rock layer like a ghost. When he saw the masked experts sticking to the rock layer like stones, he sneered in his heart. Ha! You want to ambush and assassinate people with such little ability? As this thought flashed through his mind, Ji Tianqing secretly used the law of poison and activated the soul-extinguishing poison. 10 wisps of black soul-extinguishing poison gushed out from his fingertips and spread rapidly in the rock layer. The rock layer was pitch black and the soul-extinguishing poison was also pitch black. It was impossible to see it with the naked eye. The divine masters and the masked experts did not dare to use their divine sense and divine power in order to hide their auras. Therefore, no one noticed anything unusual. They also did not know that the god of death had arrived. The pitch-black soul-extinguishing poison quickly spread across the rock layer and filled up the gaps between the rock layer. The mysterious poison ignored everyone's armor, penetrated their divine bodies, and directly killed their godheads. Swoosh! Swoosh swoosh! After a short 2 breaths of time, death arrived. One after another, the masked experts had their godheads corroded by the soul-extinguishing poison, their divine souls dying on the spot. Even though their bodies and clothes were completely undamaged, without the slightest wound, they were still in a daze. Their divine souls were destroyed, and they lost their consciousness and thoughts. Even if their godheads were still there, they were still alive, but they had already become useless trash. They were no different from rocks and wood. In just 3 breaths of time, the 100 masked experts all lost their divine souls. The Du family's divine master's strength was stronger. Even if he was hit by the soul-extinguishing poison, he could also hold on for a moment. He crawled in the rock layer, holding his head in incomparable pain, his entire body trembling like sifting chaff. Why is this Lord's consciousness so chaotic, Godhead almost exploding? No. There must be a problem. Who ambushed this Lord? The Du family's divine master realized that something was wrong and started to struggle. However, a formless divine power suddenly attacked from behind him, blasting his Godhead. Chapter 29:11. Bam! A muffled sound exploded in the Du family's consecrator's mind. His divine soul suffered a heavy blow, and his vision turned black, and he fainted. Following that, an even more turbulent soul-extinguishing poison invaded his divine spark without any restraint. After 2 breaths, his divine soul was completely destroyed. The preserved divine body also lost its thoughts and consciousness, akin to a piece of wood. Only then did the invisible Ji Tianqing appear. He stared at the Du family's consecrator prostrating on the ground, a hint of a cold smile curled at the corners of his mouth. Mirror image law. With a low cry in his heart, he used the mirror image law that he had just condensed not long ago. Swoosh! A black light flashed, and Ji Tianqing became the Du family's consecrator. Regardless of whether it was looks, figure, or temperament, it was completely the same. Even the 2 people's hair number, skin texture, some wounds and markings on their bodies, were completely the same. It was no exaggeration at all. Even if the Du family's patriarch came, he might not be able to distinguish the real from the fake. Indeed interesting. Ji Tianqing looked at the Du family's consecrator, then looked at himself, revealing a hint of a satisfied smile. Following that, he reached out his palm and pressed on the Du family's consecrator's head, quietly unleashing a surge of divine power. Crack! The Du family's consecrator's divine spark was shattered, and he died on the spot. 10 pieces of divine spark fragments wrapped in golden light flew out of the corpse, landing in Ji Tianqing's palm. Ji Tianqing put away the divine spark fragments and quietly groped toward the east. As for those 100 masked experts, he could not be bothered with them for the time being. Anyway, these people lost their divine souls and were no different from blocks of wood. After the battle ended, it would not be too late to deal with them then. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing was like an invisible ghost, shuttling back and forth underground as fast as passing through. After a few breaths, he arrived at the east side of the Grand Array and tunneled into a cave. This last-minute cave was only 1,000 feet in radius. There were 100 celestial deity experts inside, all wearing black armor, with helmets covering their faces. These were the Nangong family's people, all wearing armor forged by the Nangong family, their defense very strong. The one in the lead was a burly man wearing a golden robe. This person's figure was tall and straight like a sword, his aura very sharp. He was the Nangong aristocratic family's head elder, possessing 6th-level divine lord realm strength. The Nangong family was good at refining weapons and had forged all kinds of famous armors and swords. Grand Elder's cultivation method and divine ability were also focused on tempering the body. His body was forged like a divine sword, with a threatening sharpness. Ji Tianqing quietly sneaked into the cave. He used the same trick again and released the surging soul-extinguishing poison. The pitch-black soul-extinguishing poison quickly spread through the cave. The armors and defensive divine artifacts of the heavenly gods were completely useless. In the blink of an eye, many experts were corroded by the soul-extinguishing poison. Their souls quickly dissipated, and before they could even let out a scream, they had become soulless walking corpses. However, there were always exceptions. First Elder Nangong, who was the strongest among them, had just been corroded by the soul-extinguishing poison when a golden bead on her chest lit up with a dazzling golden light. Great Elder Nangong's godhead was corroded by the soul-destroying poison, and he groaned in pain. However, the power of the soul-extinguishing poison was reduced by half by the golden pearl in front of his chest. Therefore, he was only injured and did not fall unconscious. Great Elder Nangong instantly woke up, and his eyes angrily scanned the surroundings. He shouted angrily, "Who is it? Who ambushed me? Damned beast, get the hell out here!" Seeing that Great Elder Nangong was still full of strength and was still shouting in the cave, Ji Tianqing was afraid that he would alert the other groups, so he could only appear in a hurry. "Quick, retreat quickly. There's a trap here." He staggered into the cave, his left hand clutching his chest, and his voice was hoarse and intermittent. Whether it was his expression, actions, or voice, he was exactly the same as the Du family's consecrator. Anyone who saw him like this would think that he was heavily injured. Great Elder Nangong was no exception. He turned his head and stared at him, furrowing his brows. "Du family's consecrator? What are you doing? Who hurt you?" Recognizing that it was the Du family's consecrator, Great Elder Nangong relaxed a lot, but he was more confused. Ji Tianqing anxiously rushed in front of him and shouted in a muffled voice, "We've all been tricked. Qishan old thief. He purposely exposed himself. What a vicious method." As he spoke, Ji Tianqing spat out a mouthful of blood. He seemed to have used up all his strength, as he staggered and fell towards Great Elder Nangong. "What?" Great Elder Nangong's eyes widened, and his heart was filled with shock. Seeing that the Du family's consecrator had fainted, he subconsciously stretched out his arms to support him. At the same time, he anxiously shouted, "Brother! Don't faint! Wake up quickly! What is going on? That bastard Count Qishan, what did he do?" The five great families and Count Qishan had always been wary of each other, afraid of each other, and restrained each other. Once there was a suitable opportunity, and they did not need to take responsibility, they would not hesitate to get rid of each other. Even if they were working together now, the five great families were still wary of Princess Tianfeng. Thus, Great Elder Nangong only wanted to ask Ji Tianqing what Count Qishan was plotting. He completely ignored the fact that the Du family's consecrator in front of him was a fake. Bang! Just as Great Elder Nangong supported Ji Tianqing, he felt a loud explosion in his mind. A formless divine soul energy fiercely hit his godhead, heavily injuring his divine soul. At the same time, the Du family's consecrator, who should have fainted, pulled off the golden pearl he was wearing. Great Elder Nangong's vision turned black, and he staggered back a few steps before falling to the ground. Only now did he realize that the Du family's consecrator was unharmed. He was not injured at all. Moreover, the Du family's consecrator was holding the golden pearl in his hand and looking at him with a cold smile. He. I didn't expect you to have such a treasure on you. It can actually block my poison. The Du family's consecrator sneered. Great Elder Nangong immediately felt a chill run down his spine. He glared at the Du family's consecrator and roared, "You damned bastard! You dare to sneak attack me? Why did you do this? Are you not afraid that the Du family will become the target of public criticism?" Until now, Great Elder Nangong still did not see any flaws. He just could not understand why the Du family's consecrator would attack him and ruin the ambush. Was this guy crazy? Was he not afraid of the Nangong family and Count Qishan's revenge? He. It's better to be a muddle-headed ghost. Goodbye. Ji Tianqing sneered, and once again sent out divine soul energy towards Great Elder Nangong's head. Pfff. Great Elder Nangong opened his mouth and spat out blood. His eyes were filled with anger as he fell straight to the ground. His divine soul was heavily injured, shattered, and corroded by the soul-extinguishing poison, dissipating in the blink of an eye. Even if his godhead and body were intact, it was useless. Ji Tianqing strode over and struck his head with his palm, shattering his godhead. After taking out his godhead fragment, Ji Tianqing used the mirror image law and changed his appearance. Then, using Great Elder Nangong's appearance, he quickly ran towards the group in the northeast corner. Chapter 29:12. In the northeast corner of the formation, there was also a middle-level divine monarch and 100 divine realm experts. They were the Shang family, a merchant that dealt in salt and iron. The leader was the Grand Elder of the Shang family, the grandfather of the current family head. People called him Old Ancestor Shang. This old man was dressed in a blue robe and had a white beard that reached his chest. His body was as thin as firewood, but his aura was as strong as a mountain. He was also a 5th-level divine monarch expert and had cultivated the withered wood true technique to the peak. At this moment, he was standing in the crack in the ground, frowning as he looked in the direction of the Nangong family. His eyes flashed with a cold light. Almost 100 elite experts in grey robes and masks were lurking in the cracks below the ground, waiting for orders with their sabers and swords in hand. The guard captain approached Old Ancestor Shang and asked respectfully, "Old Ancestor, there seems to be a problem with the Nangong family. Do you want me to go down and take a look?" Old Ancestor Shang waved his hand and said in a dignified tone, "No need. The princess hasn't given the order to attack yet, so the target probably hasn't appeared yet. As for the Nangong family, if they cause any trouble, the princess will take care of them. We just need to do our part." Before he finished speaking, his divine sense detected a burly man in a golden robe flying underground. It was a Divine Lord powerhouse. It was none other than Great Elder Nangong. He was rushing over in a hurry. Old Ancestor Shang immediately shut his mouth and stared at Great Elder Nangong vigilantly, locking onto his aura. A familiar figure and face, as well as a familiar aura of the Divine Soul. Old Ancestor Shang muttered in his heart, "It's really him. What is this little brat doing here in this old man's place?" In the blink of an eye, Great Elder Nangong entered the crack in the ground and arrived in front of Old Ancestor Shang. Although it was dark underground, there was no light. Old Ancestor Shang could see that Great Elder Nangong's hair was disheveled and his chest was stained with blood. Old Ancestor Shang's heart tightened as he had a bad premonition. "Little Nangong, what happened?" Old Ancestor Shang stared at him with a sharp gaze. Although he seemed to be concerned, he was secretly on guard. Great Elder Nangong was very tactful. He stopped 100 steps away from Old Ancestor Shang. He raised his blood-stained face and roared in a hoarse voice, "Old Ancestor Shang! Quick! Quickly activate the formation, that brat is already here. Just now, that brat used a secret technique to kill the experts under my command. I exchanged a few blows with him and was injured by him. I was lucky enough to escape and warn him." Great Elder Nangong sounded very anxious as blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. Of course, Old Ancestor Shang didn't suspect anything. He just asked in disbelief, "What? The target is already here. Why didn't Count Qishan notice? Why didn't he give the order to attack? Is that kid's strength and methods really so terrifying?" Great Elder Nangong was very anxious and did not have the patience to answer so many questions. He growled, "It's true. Otherwise, why would I be injured? Quickly inform the others to work together to activate the formation. Otherwise, it will be too late." After saying that, Great Elder Nangong was about to pass through the crack to inform the other group of people. Old Ancestor Shang didn't have time to think and he quickly dissuaded Zhongyu, "You don't have to inform them personally, I can just send a voice transmission to them. If you stay here, this old man can take care of you in case that brat sneak attacks." This was exactly what Great Elder Nangong wanted. He stayed in the crack and stood beside Old Ancestor Shang. He quickly took out an elixir and consumed it to heal his injuries. Old Ancestor Shang didn't waste any time and immediately used his divine sense to inform the people of the other two families. The people of the Qing family and the Lu family were lying in ambush at the south and west of the formation. The two leading monarchs were the Qing family's consecrator and the Lu family's great elder. Old Ancestor Shang sent a voice transmission to the two of them and told them that the situation was urgent and that they had to activate the formation immediately. The Qing family's consecrator and the Lu family's great elder also noticed that something seemed to have happened at the Nangong family's hiding place. After hearing Old Ancestor Shang's voice transmission, they suddenly understood and nodded in agreement without hesitation. Hence, Old Ancestor Shang, the Qing family's consecrator and the Lu family's great elder simultaneously used their divine power to activate the formation together. Swoosh! Swoosh! As the three of them sent out countless divine seals, the originally calm wasteland lit up with dazzling divine light. A multicolored light barrier immediately appeared in the night sky, enveloping an area of 1,000 miles. Immediately after, another dark golden canopy rapidly expanded. During this process, the three monarchs had to be fully focused and give it their all. Only then could they activate the four formations in the shortest time possible. Old Ancestor Shang was so focused on casting that he completely ignored the Nangong family's great elder behind him. Two of the formations had been successfully activated and the third formation had just lit up with divine light. At this moment, the back of Old Ancestor Shang's head was suddenly hit and there was an explosion in his mind. His vision turned black and he couldn't help but open his mouth and spit out a mouthful of blood. An extremely violent divine power fiercely hit his godhead, causing his divine soul to be severely injured and his consciousness to become blurry. His casting was interrupted and old ancestor Shang staggered as he turned around and glared at the Nangong family's great elder. "You bastard! Why did you sneak an attack on me? Do you want to die?" Old ancestor Shang clearly remembered that the Nangong family's great elder was severely injured and had just taken an elixir to heal himself. Why didn't he look like he was severely injured? Although the Shang family and the Nangong family had a grudge, they wouldn't go so far as to kill him. Old ancestor Shang couldn't understand why the Nangong family's great elder would attack him. The Nangong family's great elder remained silent and quickly raised his palms to release a pitch-black soul-extinguishing poison. The surging poisonous gas immediately spread through the cracks in the ground and spread rapidly. Hundreds of elite experts noticed that old ancestor Shang had been sneak attacked and hurriedly charged towards the Nangong family's great elder. However, they only managed to fly a few feet before their godheads were corroded by the soul-extinguishing poison. Their divine souls were severely injured and their vision turned black as their consciousness fell into darkness. Plop, plop, following a series of muffled sounds, the experts fell into the depths of the cracks like dumplings. Their divine souls were all destroyed and they became walking corpses without any thoughts of their own. Old ancestor Shang's divine soul was already injured and he was corroded by the soul-extinguishing poison. He instantly fell into a coma. Before he fainted, a thought flashed across his mind and he suddenly realized something. You are Tianqing." Old ancestor Shang finally guessed the truth. However, it was a pity that he no longer had the chance to tell this secret to others. The Nangong family's great elder rushed forward and slapped old ancestor Shang's head, shattering his godhead into pieces. The Shang family's great elder who had lived for 20,000 years died just like that. When the Nangong family's great elder retracted his palm, there were still 9 godhead fragments in his palm. He quickly kept the godhead fragments and used the law of mirror image to transform into old ancestor Shang. As for old ancestor Shang's corpse, he casually shot out a divine flame and burned it into ashes. Old ancestor Shang glanced at the cracks in the ground and only retracted his gaze when he saw that the hundreds of experts were all dead. He quickly passed through the cracks and flew towards the Qing family. Chapter 29:13. The Qing family's great elder and the Lu family's great elder realized that something was amiss. Grand Elder Shang told them that their target had arrived and had attacked Grand Elder Nangong. However, when the 3 of them were in the process of activating the array, Grand Elder Shang was attacked and stopped casting his spell. The Qing family's great elder and the Lu family's great elder realized that Grand Elder Shang had also been attacked by Tianqing. The 2 of them released their divine senses to check the crack in the ground where the Shang family members were. Immediately, they saw hundreds of enlightened gods lying motionlessly in the crack with their divine souls shattered. Even old ancestor Shang's corpse was engulfed in golden divine flames and soon turned into ashes. Seeing this, the Qing family's great elder and the Lu family's great elder were shocked. The 2 of them stopped casting spells and quickly led their subordinates out of the ground and into the night sky. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, 2 groups of people appeared in the night sky and were on high alert. The area within 1,000 miles was sealed by the 2 arrays. Everyone had their backs against the sealing formation as they vigilantly scanned their surroundings. They believed that their target was somewhere near the array. However, they were not sure if their target was outside the array or trapped inside the array. The most important thing now was to find their target and kill him. At this moment, a divine light shone in the northern night sky. Close to 200 heavenly god experts also quickly spread out and lined up along the ceiling formation. These were the experts from the princess residence. They were all armed with weapons and were on high alert. However, Princess Tianfeng and Huanyu did not appear. The Qing family's great elder's face turned pale. He hesitated for a moment before asking the Lu family's great elder. "Senior Lu, why is Princess Tianfeng not here?" The target is hiding in the dark and we can't detect his aura within 1,000 miles. What should we do? The Lu family's great elder had the same doubts and concerns. He pondered for a moment before replying, the target is powerful and his methods are strange. We can't guard against him. The only thing we can do now is not to act on our own and not to trust anyone easily. We have to be alert and stay in formation. The target is impatient and will attack us soon. Upon hearing this, the Qing clan's honorary elder felt that Lu Li's words made a lot of sense. He hurriedly replied, Senior Lu, you're right. We'll do as you say. Even though the 5 aristocratic families competed with each other and had grudges with the princess's manor. However, the Qing clan and the Lu clan had been in an alliance for over 100 years. They had been working together to fight against other forces, so they trusted each other a lot. The two groups of people remained in their original positions, ready to attack. Once the target appeared, they would attack with all their might. However, it was a pity that the night sky was completely silent and there was nothing out of the ordinary. 15 minutes had passed, but the target did not appear. Neither did Princess Tianfeng and Huanyu. The grand elder of the Lu family sensed that something was not right. He sent a telepathic message to the Qing family consecrator, this is not good. Why didn't anyone from the Nangong, Du, and Shang family appear? Not only were 300 experts killed, but even 3 divine monarchs died. The Qing family's consecrator also realized this problem. His heart tightened as he replied via voice transmission, it seems that the people from the 3 aristocratic families have already met with misfortune. He was just a young guardian from Qingshan City. Did he really have such terrifying strength and means? Senior Lu, why do I feel that there is something fishy about this? The grand elder of the Lu family remained silent for a while before replying via voice transmission, it is indeed fishy. No matter how powerful that kid is, it is impossible for him to kill all the people from the 3 aristocratic families without anyone noticing. Unless this is a plot by Princess Tianfeng. That little bastard Tianqing is actually one of his men. They have joined forces to put on a show to harm the 5 aristocratic families. As long as they get rid of us, Princess Tianfeng will be able to dominate the north and become the real governor. Moreover, he can push the blame to Tianqing. He will be the one who benefits from this and will not have to bear the consequences. One had to admit that the grand elder of the Lu family was very imaginative. The Qing family's consecrator was also shocked by his words. He exclaimed in disbelief, this is impossible. How could Princess Tianfeng be so deranged? The grand elder of the Lu family said in a low voice, in this world where the strong prey on the weak, as long as it involves benefits, nothing is impossible. It is always good for us to be cautious. The Qing family's consecrator accepted his words and said in a serious tone, if that is the case, not only do we have to guard against Tianqing's sneak attack, but we also have to guard against Princess Tianfeng and Huanyu. Just as he finished his sentence. In the darkness a few hundred miles away, there was a faint black shadow that was charging towards them at lightning speed. Swoosh! After 2 breaths of time, the black shadow flew close to the Qing clan and headed straight for them. The Qing family's consecrator's divine sense immediately locked onto the black shadow. He gripped his divine saber tightly and was ready to strike. Stop right there. The Qing family's consecrator shouted when he saw that the black shadow looked familiar. The black shadow stopped and stood a few hundred feet away from him, panting heavily. Little brother, run. This is a plot. We have all been fooled by Earl Qishan. The black shadow's voice was old and hoarse. It was filled with anxiety and anger. The Qing family's consecrator finally saw that the black shadow was a skinny old man with a white beard. It was Patriarch Shang. His chest and face were stained with blood. His hair was disheveled and he was in a sorry state. The Qing family's consecrator was shocked. A thought flashed across his mind. Wasn't Patriarch Shang killed and his body burned to ashes? How could he still be alive? Why did he warn me? At the thought of this, the Qing family's consecrator wanted to expose the other party. However, he was cautious. He sent a telepathic message to the Grand Elder of the Lu family for help. At the same time, he asked Patriarch Shang, Senior Shang, why are you so severely injured? Who was it that injured you? Could it be that you were attacked by Tianqing? Patriarch Shang panted weakly. He waved his hand and said, no. There were two people who attacked me. One was Tianqing and the other was Huanyu. The Qing family's consecrator's eyes shrunk. He said in shock, how could Huanyu? I understand now. Do you mean that Tianqing and Infanta Tianfeng are in cahoots? Patriarch Shang nodded and said, that's right. This is Count Qishan's conspiracy. It's a conspiracy against the 5 aristocratic families. The Qing family's consecrator comforted him, Patriarch Shang, don't worry. We will protect you. Let's work together to deal with Princess Tianfeng. Following his words, the Grand Elder of the Lu family flew across the night sky and came to his side. Not far away, hundreds of experts from the Lu family rushed over at lightning speed. Patriarch Shang heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the Qing family and the Lu family had gathered. He quickly flew over. My injuries are too severe. I need to recuperate for a while. Please take care of me. Patriarch Shang flew to the Qing family's consecrator. He kept a distance of 100 steps and was about to meditate to recuperate. The Qing family's consecrator and the Lu family's grand elder looked at each other and were about to take the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. At this moment, 9 black light blades descended from the dark night sky and pierced towards Patriarch Shang. Another burly figure appeared and slashed out a giant sword that was 100 feet long towards Great Ancestor Shang's head. Chapter 29:14. The sudden turn of events shocked the Great Elder of the Qing family and the Great Elder of the Lu family. The two of them looked up at the night sky and saw Princess Tianfeng charging toward them with a divine sword in her hand. The other blurry figure was still releasing pitch-black light blades. Needless to say, the blurry figure was Huanyu. Princess Tianfeng and Huanyu had finally appeared. The two of them attacked at the same time and their target was Patriarch Shang. The Great Elder of the Qing family and the Great Elder of the Lu family were even more certain that they were right. The person with the problem was Patriarch Shang. The two of them brandished their swords and sabers without hesitation and used their super skills to attack Patriarch Shang. Moon falling heavenly rainbow. 9 extremes true emperor slash. The super skills of the 4 Sir gods turned into a sky full of divine skill light shadows and engulfed Patriarch Shang. The night sky within a few hundred miles was illuminated in a dazzling brilliance. The majestic divine power that could suppress heaven and earth and the saber light and sword shadows that could crush everything were about to kill Patriarch Shang. At this critical moment, Patriarch Shang, who seemed to be severely injured, had a chilling look in his eyes. The same trick won't work after 3 consecutive times. What a pity. As this thought flashed across his mind, he teleported a few hundred miles away and entered the 2 arrays. The overwhelming divine skill light shadows hit the array light shield and let out a deafening explosion. Boom! 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 In an instant, the seal array within 1,000 miles shook violently from the bombardment and let out a dazzling light. However, these 2 arrays were of a higher grade and their defensive power was very strong. The 4 Sir gods' full force attack only created a few cracks on the array light shield and did not destroy it. Patriarch Shang, who had escaped into the array light shield, was naturally safe and sound. Everyone was stunned for a moment before they came to their senses. They were pleasantly surprised and pleased. Ha ha ha. That guy was forced into a corner and fell into the trap himself. The real Patriarch Shang is dead. That Patriarch Shang must be an imposter. That guy had been hiding in the dark and thinking of ways to attack us. Now that he has entered the array light shield, he is definitely going to die. It's a pity that only 2 great formations have been activated, so they might not have much destructive power. If all 4 great formations are activated, that guy is dead for sure. The 4 Sir Gods and the many experts were whispering to each other as they discussed. While everyone was pleasantly surprised and excited, they also felt some regret and pity. Currently, the 2 major formations that were activated were the Sealing Formation and the Illusory Formation. Once they entered the formation, they would lose their sense of direction and be sealed within. It would be extremely difficult for them to escape. If the other 2 killing arrays were activated, they would be able to release even more terrifying killing power. At the thought of this, Princess Tianfeng hurriedly ordered, Qing Clan's Consecrator, Lu Clan's Grand Elder, lead your men to control the formation and seal the fake Patriarch Shang. Huanyu and I will work together to activate the other 2 formations. The Qing Clan's Consecrator hesitated for a moment before turning to look at the Lu Clan's Grand Elder. Because of what Princess Tianfeng had said, the Qing Clan's Consecrated Elder didn't trust her enough. Under such circumstances, he only dared to trust the first elder of the Lu clan. The first elder of the Lu clan gave him a look and cupped his fists at Princess Tianfeng. He said, Princess Tianfeng, if that Patriarch Shang is a fake, it is most likely Tianqing in disguise. This proves that Patriarch Shang has already been killed. Apart from the Shang clan, the Du clan and the Nangong clan have also met with misfortune. This shows that Tianqing's strength and means are far beyond our expectations. Now, only the 2 of us and the princess residents are left. It will be difficult for us to deal with that guy. Of course, Princess Tianfeng understood what the first elder of the Lu clan meant. With a stern look, she said, that guy has already entered our trap. What's so difficult about it? I didn't ask you to enter the array light shield to kill him. I only asked you to control the array light shield to suppress him. How could the first elder of the Lu clan agree? With a determined look, he said, Princess Tianfeng, I understand what you mean. However, the fact is that the guy has already killed people from the 3 aristocratic families. Not only 300 experts, but even 3 Sir Gods have been killed by him. The disciples of the Lu clan and the Qing clan have risked our lives to help you. If we were not careful, we would have lost our lives. Princess Tianfeng, shouldn't you be more sympathetic to us? Otherwise, how could we risk our lives to help you? Obviously, this was a last-minute increase in price. Otherwise, they would have quit. Princess Tianfeng had spent so much effort and paid such a high price to get to this point. How could she give up now? Even though she was burning with anger and gritting her teeth, she could only say, fine, I will sympathize with you. I will double the price that we agreed on earlier. Are you satisfied? The first elder of the Lu clan and the honorary elder of the Qing clan smiled and nodded. Princess Tianfeng is indeed magnanimous. We will do our best to help you. With that, the 2 of them did not waste any more time. They quickly led their subordinates to control the array light shield. Buzz. As more than 200 people released their divine power and poured it into the divine array, the light shield within a radius of 1,000 miles shone brightly. The power of the array light shield increased by more than 3 times. The invisible suppressive force froze the space within the array light shield. Even Sir Gods could not move. On top of that, the power of the confusion array light shield increased by several times. Even a middle-level Sir God would be lost in the illusory array and would not be able to escape. Although this would not cause much harm to Patriarch Shang, it would still be able to trap him. However, it was able to trap him inside and continuously weaken his strength. Princess Tianfeng and Huanyu made use of this opportunity to activate the other 2 killing arrays. The process was slow and would take at least 20 breaths of time. Of course, everyone was confident in the other two killing arrays. Everyone believed that Tian Xing had been suppressed by the Matrix. It was difficult for him to move and he could not escape. In just 20 breaths of time, Princess Tian Feng would be able to activate the last two killing arrays. At that time, Tian Heng's doomsday would arrive. Time passed quickly. 3 breaths, 5 breaths, 10 breaths. Soon, 15 breaths of time passed. Everything was normal. Princess Tian Feng and Huanyu were not disturbed and were trying their best to activate the killing arrays. However, at the 16th breaths of time, something strange happened. An earth-shattering sound suddenly came from the golden light shield within a radius of 1,000 miles. Boom! Crack! A huge crack appeared on the golden light shield and countless shards of divine light flew out. A blurry black shadow shot out from the killing arrays and engulfed the members of the Qing family with a dark green fog. More than 100 elites were immediately engulfed by the dark green fog and screams of agony could be heard. Everyone's flesh and skin started to fester and turn into black blood that flowed on the ground. In the blink of an eye, the elites were corroded and turned into skeletons. They fell to the ground. Even their godheads were corroded by the dark soul-destroying poison and cracks started to appear on their godheads. Their souls were destroyed by the poison. These heavenly deity experts all fainted, no longer breathing. Chapter 29:15. In just 2 seconds, all the elites of the Qing family had been crippled. All of them were reduced to skeletons, their godheads were severely damaged, and their divine souls were destroyed. Even the Qing family's official was sent flying by the black shadow. He fell to the ground with blood gushing out of his 7 orifices. When he got up and flew into the sky, he found that his legs had been corroded by the dark green mist. Black blood dripped from them, and only his bones were left. The heart-wrenching pain caused him to suck in a breath of cold air. He subconsciously shouted, "Deadly poison! It's poison!" There was no doubt that the dark green mist was the blood-dissolving poison. It could corrode the flesh of living beings in a short time. Other than the blood-dissolving poison, there was also the soul-destroying poison. However, the soul-destroying poison was black and not obvious in the night sky. That was why everyone ignored it. As the official of the Qing family screamed, the blood-dissolving poison quickly spread through his body. The soul-destroying poison also entered his body and corroded his godhead. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his godhead. His divine soul became blurry and he almost fainted. Puff, the official of the Qing family spat out a mouthful of blood. He was shocked and ran away without looking back. At the same time, the Grand Elder of the Lu family and the Infanta Princess of Tianfeng also saw the black shadow dashing out of the array and releasing the deadly poison. Immediately, the divine senses of the 3 divine lord powerhouses locked onto the black figure. The 300 elites waved their swords and attacked the black shadow. Seeing this, Princess Tianfeng was horrified. She quickly ordered, "Stop. Back off. Don't touch the poison." He had seen hundreds of people of the Qing family being corroded into skeletons with his own eyes. How could he let his men die? Unfortunately, the blood-dissolving poison and the soul-destroying poison spread too quickly. When the 300 elites sensed the danger, it was too late for them to run away. Whoosh, the dark green and black poison spread out like a storm and covered a radius of 200 miles. More than 200 elites were immediately swallowed by the 2 types of poison. In the thick, dark green fog, extremely miserable roars and shouts rang out crazily. One by one, the divine realm elites were corroded and turned into skeletons. Then, their divine souls were also destroyed by the poison. They lost their minds and consciousness and fell to the ground. In less than 3 breaths, the dark green mist became quiet again. More than 260 elites were completely destroyed and turned into skeletons on the ground. The remaining 30 or so people fled as if their lives depended on it. They managed to escape the corrosive effects of the poison. The Grand Elder of the Lu clan, Princess Tianfeng, and Huanyu also used their mystiques to resist the corrosive effects of the two deadly poisons. The three of them were on guard and resisted with all their might, so they didn't suffer much damage. But the official of the Qing family. Just as he fled 100 miles away, the black shadow caught up with him. He could only see it clearly when he got closer. In the blurry shadow, there was a skinny white-haired old man. It was old Ancestor Shang. Grand Ancestor Shang's left hand shot out a ball of 5-colored lightning that shot towards the Qing family's consecrator like a cannonball. He waved a pitch-black divine sword in his right hand, and a ball of dazzling golden light shot out like a scorching sun. The sinecure of Qing clan was poisoned by the blood-dissolving poison and the soul-destroying poison. Not only was the lower half of his body corroded into white bones, even his soul was severely wounded, and his consciousness was blurred. Seeing the 5-colored lightning and the golden sun coming at him, he wanted to teleport away, but it was too late. At the moment of life and death, he could only erupt with his strongest power and condense a law shield to protect himself. 9 types of law powers mixed together to form a 5-colored oval shield. The defensive power of this shield was comparable to a monarch-level middle-grade divine artifact. The Qing family's consecrator prayed that the shield would be able to block the attack. He hoped that the Lu clan's elder, Princess Tianfeng, and Huanyu would hurry over to kill old Ancestor Shang. Only then could he escape with his life. However, his hopes were shattered on the spot. Boom! The 5-colored lightning struck the law shield, causing an earth-shattering boom to erupt. 5 different types of divine lightning erupted with the most violent and terrifying power, directly shattering the law barrier. Thousands of multicolored shards shot out in all directions, illuminating the night sky for thousands of kilometers. In the next moment, the golden sun struck the Qing family's consecrator. Bam! In the earth-shattering boom, the golden sun exploded, causing a huge mushroom cloud to rise in the night sky. At this moment, the golden light within a 100-mile radius soared into the night sky, as though the real sun had descended. The body of the Qing family's consecrator was blown to smithereens, leaving not even a complete bone behind. Even his godhead had been blasted into 12 pieces and scattered all over the wasteland. Another middle-level Sir God had fallen. Old Ancestor Shang immediately turned around, holding the pitch-black divine sword, and charged toward Princess Tianfeng and the rest. At this time, the 30 or so surviving elites had already fled in all directions. Only Princess Tianfeng, the Lu clan's grand elder, and Huanyu were left near the broken seal. Swoosh! The 3 Sir Gods flew across the night sky and were about to chase after old Ancestor Shang. Seeing that old Ancestor Shang had returned, the 3 of them did not chase after him. Instead, they spread out and surrounded him. Princess Tianfeng held the dark golden divine sword in her hand as she stared at old Ancestor Shang with bloodshot eyes. Her body exuded a murderous aura, causing her hair to dance in the wind. Huanyu was wearing a black robe and a cloak that covered his face. He stood quietly in the night sky, as though he had become one with the darkness. The Lu clan's grand elder held a long saber and stared at old Ancestor Shang with a sharp gaze. The 4 Sir Gods faced each other in the night sky, but none of them made the first move. After a moment of silence, Princess Tianfeng was the first to speak. She shouted angrily, "Tianqing! You despicable, vicious bastard! Why don't you show your true form?" Old Ancestor Shang sneered and said with disdain, "Earl Qishan, are you blind? Or are you out of your mind? I am the old ancestor of the Shang family. Can't you tell?" Hearing this, Princess Tianfeng frowned and used her divine sense to observe him. The Lu clan's grand elder and Huanyu also used their divine sense to check his identity. Unfortunately, the 3 of them could not find any loopholes. The old ancestor of the Shang family in front of them was more real than real. Huan Yu asked coldly, "Old ancestor of the Shang family, you are a person of virtue and prestige. How can you be on the same side as that bastard Tianqing? I don't understand why the Shang family is going against the princess residence." Old ancestor Shang stroked his white beard and sneered. "You are a useless princess. Be it in terms of strength, scheming, or tactics, you are all suppressed by Mr. Tianqing. If the Shang family succumbs to you, not only will they not gain any benefits, they will also be restrained. However, if I work with Mr. Tianqing, we can kill all of you. By then, the Shang family will be the strongest in Tianfeng City and will definitely become the new princess. Even if the king investigates and finds out that all of you were killed by Mr. Tianqing, what does it have to do with the Shang family?" The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Can't you understand such a simple logic? End of chapter. Chapter 29:16. Patriarch Shang's words were clear and logical. Not only was Princess Tianfeng stunned, but even the Lu family's grand elder was shocked. Just a moment ago, he even reminded the Qing family's minister not to trust anyone easily, including Princess Tianfeng. He even suspected that Princess Tianfeng had colluded with Tianqing to put on this show. They wanted to get rid of the 5 big families, dominate Tianfeng County, and become the governor. Moreover, they wanted to push all the blame to Tianqing. It had nothing to do with Princess Tianfeng. The Lu family's grand elder had the same idea as Patriarch Shang. The only difference was that this despicable schemer was Princess Tianfeng or the Shang family. Obviously, the Lu family's grand elder believed it. However, he did not have the chance to get to know Tianqing. If he did, he would be more than happy to work with Tianqing to get rid of Princess Tianfeng and the other 4 big families. By then, the Lu family would be the most powerful family in Tianfeng County, and it would not be difficult for Princess Tianfeng to become the new princess. The benefits belonged to the Lu family, and the blame belonged to Tianqing. How perfect! Princess Tianfeng also knew that the Lu family's grand elder would think this way. She had even thought about how to get rid of the 5 big families more than once. Therefore, she was not surprised that Patriarch Shang colluded with Tianqing. The 4 divine emperors were silent. Infanta Tianfeng stared at Grand Ancestor Shang with sharp eyes. Suddenly, she sneered and said, "Grand Ancestor Shang, you are a despicable person who doesn't die because of old age. I am curious, when did you get in touch with Tianqing and talk about cooperation?" "Ha ha ha." Patriarch Shang sneered and said, "Opportunities are always given to those who are prepared." It was a specious answer. It seemed that he had answered Princess Tianfeng's question, but he did not say anything. Princess Tianfeng was not satisfied and continued to ask, "There is no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Have you thought about the consequences of doing this? By then, not only will the Shang family be executed by the emperor, but they will also go down in history in infamy." Patriarch Shang seemed to have lost his patience. He sneered again and said, "I will kill all the people who participated in tonight's battle. Who else can leak the news? Alright, you don't have to stall for time. Everything should be over now." As soon as he finished speaking, Grand Ancestor Shang's left palm shot out a dark purple fog that covered the sky and earth, while his right hand waved the sword and slashed out hundreds of sword lights. Shwa! In the blink of an eye, the dark purple fog that covered the sky and covered an area of 200 miles. Hundreds of 5-colored sword radiances, carrying the power of 50 laws, slashed toward Princess Tianfeng and her 2 companions. Seeing this, the Lu clan's grand elder suddenly realized something. He growled, "No. He wasn't old Ancestor Shang. Grand Ancestor Shang isn't good at using poison, and his attainments in the sword Dao aren't as amazing as this. Moreover, he had used his divine consciousness to check that old ancestor Shang's body had already turned into ashes. Therefore, he was certain that this old ancestor Shang was a fake. He was Tianqing in disguise. However, it was a pity that the dark purple fog and sword lights had already arrived in front of him. The Grand Elder of the Lu clan could only use his ultimate skill to block the sword light and poison mist with all his might. Princess Tianfeng also saw through this and guessed that he was not the real Shang clan Grand Elder. But it was too late now. Shua! The dark purple fog poured down and turned the area of 200 miles into scorched earth. More than 30 sword radiances came toward him. The sword essence suppressed his divine power and greatly reduced his combat strength. At this critical moment, there was no time for him to escape. He could only wave his golden sword to block the attack. Bang, bang, bang. In the deafening sound, Princess Tianfeng was sent flying by the sword radiances. While she was still in the air, she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her internal organs were severely injured, and her defense was weakened again. The dark purple mist that followed him like a shadow immediately invaded his body and spread at an extremely fast speed. Crack, crack. In the blink of an eye, Princess Tianfeng's left arm and chest were corroded by the poison. Her skin, flesh, blood, meridians, and bones were all turned into black debris and scattered in the night sky. This was the violent poison. It was extremely violent and could destroy all targets in the shortest time possible. Princess Tianfeng couldn't help but scream in pain. However, her internal organs and throat had been corroded by the poison and she couldn't make any sound. What was more frightening was that the poison was spreading up her neck and was about to corrode her brain and godhead. Princess Tianfeng was terrified and her heart was filled with fear. She didn't dare to stay any longer. She turned around and fled toward Tianfeng City without hesitation. On the other side, the Lu family's Grand Elder and Huanyu were also in a miserable state. Both of them were pushed back by the five-colored sword radiances and were sent flying for more than 10 miles. While their internal organs were injured, the dark purple poison took advantage of this opportunity to invade their bodies. Their limbs were corroded by the poison. Their flesh, skin, and bones were all charred and shattered. The heart-wrenching pain caused them to convulse and groan in pain. They couldn't be bothered to fight back. Instead, they quickly circulated their energy to stop the poison from spreading. However, Patriarch Shang swung his sword again and used an even more violent sword technique. Shua! 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 The giant sword slashed down with a force that could split the heavens and earth. It suppressed the Lu family's Grand Elder and rendered him immobile. Kaboom! With a deafening sound, the Lu family's Grand Elder was smashed into pieces by the giant sword. Blood splattered everywhere. The pieces of his body fell on the wasteland and were quickly corroded into ashes by the dark purple poison. Even his godhead was sliced into more than 10 pieces and scattered among the wasteland. The Lu family's Grand Elder died on the spot. Huanyu didn't last long either. He was shrouded by more than 300 sword radiances and was shredded into pieces. Soon, the pieces of flesh were charred and turned into fine powder when the wind blew. The pieces of the godhead fell to the ground and were caught by Patriarch Shang. Huanyu also died on the spot. Patriarch Shang couldn't be bothered to collect his spoils of war. He sprinted toward Tianfeng City and chased after Princess Tianfeng. Swoosh! Princess Tianfeng ran with all her might. She was like a bolt of lightning that streaked across the night sky. She fled toward the North City gate at her fastest speed. She was running for her life with all her might. Naturally, she couldn't stop the poison from spreading in her body. When she was 20,000 miles away, half of her body had been corroded by the poison and was charred black. Moreover, her mind was also corroded by the poison. The power of her godhead was greatly damaged and her divine soul was becoming blurry. She was running at a much slower speed and her strength was fading rapidly. Tianfeng City was just 3,000 miles away. Princess Tianfeng had a strong desire to live and she ran at all costs. There was only one thought in her mind. As long as I get back to the city guards and experts will be able to hold him back. Then, I will have a chance. However, just when Princess Tianfeng was 2,000 miles away from the North City Gate, she felt an extremely sharp sword essence behind her. Princess Tianfeng didn't need to turn her head. She could see it with her divine senses. A giant five-colored sword that was thousands of feet long slashed down toward his head with a godly might that could annihilate everything. No! Princess Tianfeng roared in her heart. She held the dark golden divine sword with both hands and blocked above her head. Kaboom! There was an earth-shattering sound of thunder. Princess Tianfeng was hit by the giant sword. She fell from the night sky and crashed into the wasteland. End of chapter. Chapter 29:17. Kaboom! A muffled explosion reverberated across a few thousand miles. A 10,000 feet deep crater appeared in the wasteland, kicking up a cloud of dust. The ground within 1,000 miles shook violently, and countless cracks appeared around the crater. Princess Tianfeng, whose body was half burnt, lay at the bottom of the crater, half buried in the mud. After suffering such a heavy blow, although he managed to preserve his life was in danger. The poison that had invaded his body had already corroded half of his brain. 30% of his five-colored godhead had also been corroded, and it had become pitch black. Princess Tianfeng's eyes were hazy, and her power was weak and chaotic. It would be difficult for her to continue fighting. However, her desire to live was too strong, and she would not give up so easily. Swish! She used the law of earth to merge with the rocks and continued to run toward the North City Gate. Ancestral Patriarch Shang frowned as he sensed the situation, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Solidify. He formed a spell with his left hand and used the law of earth to control the area within a 3,000-mile radius. Following his cold shout, the soil and rock in the area 200 miles ahead of him directly solidified into metal. Bang! Princess Tianfeng, who was running away, bumped into the dark golden metal block. She was a bit dazed by the impact, and she flew back 1,000 feet before she adjusted her direction and continued to run. At this moment, the divine power within a few hundred miles was sucked out. A huge dark golden palm emerged from the ground and caught hold of Princess Tianfeng in an instant. Swish! A golden light flashed. The dark golden palm flew out of the ground and streaked across the dark night sky, returning to Grand Ancestor Shang. Princess Tianfeng, who only had half of her body left, was held tightly by the giant hand and could no longer move. Even her divine power and divine sense were sealed by an invisible force. She was like a fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Princess Tianfeng was in complete despair. Ancestral Patriarch Shang looked down at her and asked calmly, "Count Qishan, how do you feel now?" Princess Tianfeng's eyes were bloodshot as she stared at him with hatred. "I only regret that I didn't work with the Blood Sword sect to sneak into Green Mountain City and kill you." Unfortunately, her divine body was damaged and she could not make a sound. His severely injured divine soul was also sealed, preventing him from using his divine soul voice. Old Ancestor Shang continued, "I know that you must be very aggrieved. After all, you're about to lose your life, but you haven't even seen my true face." Princess Tianfeng immediately stopped struggling and stared at him with her bloodshot eyes. Indeed, this was the most humiliating thing he had ever done. They had suffered such heavy losses and were on the brink of death, but they hadn't even seen the true face of their opponent. Was there anything worse than this? However, old Ancestor Shang had no intention of revealing his true form. He grinned and said, "Don't be delusional. A weak opponent like you is not qualified to see this monarch's true face. Princess Tianfeng was so humiliated that she almost exploded on the spot. However, he no longer had the chance to think about it. Old Ancestor Shang manipulated the dark golden palm and squeezed a few times in an incomparably barbaric manner. With a cracking sound, half of Princess Tianfeng's body was crushed into pieces. A half-black, half-colored godhead fell into the giant golden palm. Old Ancestor Shang slapped the godhead again and crushed it into pieces. The dignified Princess Tianfeng, the honorable Count Qishan, died in such an aggrieved manner. Old Ancestor Shang kept the godhead fragment and picked up the dark golden divine sword that had fallen into the ruins. He turned and flew away. Swoosh! When he returned to more than 20,000 miles away, the poisonous fog that had pervaded the area around the dilapidated array had disappeared. Everything returned to normal. Apart from the white bones and the ruins that covered thousands of miles, there was no one left alive. At this moment, old Ancestor Shang had returned to his original appearance. He was an 8-foot-tall, handsome young man from the human clan. His robe was whiter than snow, and his long hair fluttered in the wind. It was Ji Tianqing. He released his divine consciousness and covered thousands of miles around him as he began to clean up the battlefield. Soon, he found the godhead fragments and interspatial rings that were scattered in the ruins one by one. He even found a few monarch-grade divine artifacts. These few divine artifacts of various styles were precisely the weapons of several divine lord powerhouses. Although the monarchs were dead and their corpses were corroded into ashes by the strong poison, their divine artifacts were of a higher grade. However, their weapons were of a higher grade, so they weren't affected much. Ji Tianqing did not care about these divine artifacts, nor did he have any use for them. However, these monarch-grade middle-grade divine artifacts were worth at least a few million divine stones each. They also contained vigorous divine power and were reinforced with precepts and restriction spells. Even if Ji Tianqing devoured them, he would still benefit greatly. Soon, 15 minutes passed. Ji Tianqing cleaned up the battlefield and killed all the elite experts who were not completely dead before he disappeared into the night. He went around Tianfeng City and continued to fly south. About 30 minutes later, only 3 groups of divine beings appeared in the quiet and silent wilderness. They were all divine realm experts. They wore black clothes and masks, and their movements were swift and stealthy. These were the scouts and spies of the princess residence. They investigated the situation in the wilderness and saw pits and ravines everywhere. There were white bones and skeletons everywhere. They were dumbfounded. When they came to their senses and recognized the skeletons, their expressions changed drastically and they were scared out of their wits. After calming down, these scouts and spies rushed back to Tianfeng County City as fast as they could to report the news to their superiors. At dawn, Tianfeng City was still in a deep sleep and it was as peaceful as ever. However, a shocking piece of bad news spread among the princess residents and the 5 aristocratic families. About an hour ago, the princess and the monarchs of the 5 aristocratic families had ambushed Tianqing in the wilderness outside the city. Their mission was a complete failure. Not only were the princess and Huanyu killed, but the middle-level monarchs sent by the 5 aristocratic families also died without a complete corpse. More than 660 divine realm experts sent by the 5 aristocratic families and the princess residence were also killed. There were only 30 or so experts left and they fled back to the city. These experts were scared out of their wits and they looked extremely terrified. The family heads of the aristocratic families found these experts and asked them about the situation in person, but they did not get any information. They only knew that a mysterious black figure had rushed out of the array and released a deadly poison that filled the sky. More than 200 elite experts were quickly killed after being enveloped by the deadly poison. Other than that, they did not know anything else. Who was that black figure? What did he look like? How long had the princess and the monarchs been fighting with that black figure? What was the black figure's cultivation level? What were his characteristics? The surviving experts could not answer these questions at all. For a moment, the entire Tianfeng city was shrouded in a haze. The princess residence and the 5 aristocratic families were on tenterhooks. They were filled with fear and worry. They were worried that the mysterious expert would sneak into the city and start a massacre to take revenge. However, it turned out that their worries were unfounded. End of chapter. Chapter 29:18. For an entire day and night, Tianfeng City was shrouded in a haze. The people in the city were anxious and the 6 forces were on high alert. The atmosphere was heavy and depressing. Even though the ordinary people did not know what had happened. But there were rumors in the princess's mansion and the 5 families. It was said that the princess and the Sir God experts of the 5 families were killed outside the city last night. This news was like a bolt from the blue to the ordinary people. The princess was killed. At this moment, the sky of Tianfeng City had fallen. Which divine emperor was so daring as to assassinate a county lord? Wasn't this going against the bloody Flame Kingdom? They had to report this to the king and ask him to punish the murderer. The first thought that came to the people's minds was shock and indignation. But then, they felt that something was amiss. If the princess was killed in the princess's mansion, it could be said that it was a premeditated assassination. But why did the princess die in the wilderness outside the city? Also, why did the 5 great aristocratic families also send out divine lord powerhouses, each leading 100 masters? Why were the 6 forces working together? There must be something fishy going on. It was not as simple as it seemed. Therefore, many of the common people developed their imaginations to make wild guesses and analyze the reasons. In a short period of time, all kinds of strange reasons were spread among the people. There were also some people who were trying to please the crowd. Not only did they come up with absurd reasons, they also described the process vividly, as if they had experienced it themselves. Just like that, one wonderful story after another began to spread in Tianfeng province. The commandery princess's residence and the 5 aristocratic families were also shrouded in darkness. The people's shock and indignation towards the death of the princess gradually turned into curiosity and onlookers. Everyone thought that the king would be furious after such a big thing had happened in Tianfeng City. Just wait and see, the show is about to start. But the reaction of the princess's mansion and the 5 families was different from the people. The 6 forces closed their doors and kept quiet. No one came out to explain, and no one showed up. They were all hiding in their own mansions. While they were on guard, they were secretly packing up their belongings and preparing to leave the city and escape. The people did not know the inside story, but they knew very well. The commandery princess and the 5 aristocratic families had teamed up to ambush the Qi family's minister Tianqing and kill him in the wilderness. Unexpectedly, their plan failed. Not only did he fail to kill Tianqing, but he was also beaten to a pulp. The 7 Sir God experts, including the princess, had all lost their lives in the wilderness. Not even a complete corpse was left. This was simply too terrifying. The people from the 6 great powers couldn't help but wonder how powerful Tianqing was. He was most likely one of the best among the high divine lords, right? An expert at this level was enough to run amok in the blood flame divine kingdom. The most frightening thing was, 7 Sir Gods and more than 600 experts had been killed, but they hadn't seen Tianqing's true face until their deaths. No one was sure whether Tianqing had reached the wilderness or not. Was he the one who killed the 7 monarchs of gods and the many experts? These were all mysteries. The princess, 6 divine monarchs, and more than 600 experts had all died without knowing why. Thinking of this, the people from the 6 major forces became even more terrified. They all knew that once Tianqing started his revenge and sneaked into Tianfeng City, no one would be able to stop him. He could track them down and kill them all. Therefore, everyone was on tenterhooks and their hearts were filled with despair and sadness. Fortunately, the gloomy and torturous day had finally passed. Until the next morning, when the sun rose. The two city gates of Tianfeng City still showed no signs of being invaded. The people from the 6 major forces didn't decrease and no one was attacked. At this moment, everyone was slightly relieved. It seems that Tianqing doesn't want to take revenge on us. It's been 1 day and 2 nights and Tianqing hasn't appeared. He should have left Tianfeng City. That's right. He killed so many people in one breath. This news must have shocked the entire divine kingdom. If he doesn't escape quickly, he will be caught soon. Although Tianqing killed the princess and so many experts, there is a limit to his strength. I guess he is seriously injured and doesn't dare to take revenge. He must have hidden away to heal himself. The experts of the 6 major forces had all sorts of thoughts, and they were all secretly guessing. Late in the morning, the 6 major forces sent a large number of guards to the wilderness to clean up the battlefield and collect the corpses and belongings of the experts. That night, the 5 major families held a simple memorial ceremony. There was a mourning hall set up in the main hall to pay respects to the princess, Earl Qishan. At the same time, the princess's residence issued an obituary and submitted a document to the king to punish Tianqing severely. For the next 3 days, the princess's residence was filled with incense and cries. Countless people, squires, and celebrities came to pay respects to the princess. Everyone looked sad and indignant, hoping that the king would catch the murderer soon and give the princess an explanation. Even the heads of the 5 major families came to pay their respects. Even though many people knew that the princess would die in vain, they knew that the princess would die in vain. The princess's residence claimed that the murderer was Tianqing, but they couldn't produce any evidence. Even if the king wanted to protect the reputation of the divine kingdom and give the princess an explanation, he couldn't arrest people for no reason. However, the princess was a earl of the divine kingdom and a high official in charge of a region. After she was killed, a memorial ceremony would be held and a dignified explanation would be given. If the princess's residence kept silent and acted as if nothing had happened, that would be the biggest joke. Although the 5 major families each lost a senior god and hundreds of experts. However, this loss was still within an acceptable range. Even if they knew that the murderer was Tianqing, they could only suffer in silence and give up. They couldn't continue to chase after Tianqing, right? What if they angered him and he slaughtered their entire family? Wouldn't that be an even more unjust death? The heads of the 5 major families were all thinking about the aftermath. They were all ambitious and had their eyes on the princess's position. Earl Qishan was already dead. The princess's position couldn't be empty, right? The king liked to act according to the situation and would most likely choose a princess to take charge of the affairs of the Tianfeng county. In this way, the 5 major families all had a chance. Didn't the king do this when the Qingshan city lord was killed? So, after the 5 major families paid their respects to the princess, they all started to take action. They gathered the power of their families in the Tianfeng county and secretly started to compete. The small ones included a few shops, a few workshops, and a few courtyards. The big ones included a few hundred slaves and guards, a street, a valley, a mine. These were all things that the 5 major families fought over. When Earl Qishan was still alive, these things belonged to the common people, other small forces, or the princess's residence. But now, the 5 major families didn't care about their relatives and were unscrupulous. Everyone wanted to seize more resources and grasp more authority. Soon, they would have a greater chance of winning the princess's position. Just like this, the internal strife in the Tianfeng county began. End of chapter. Chapter 29-19. The plundering of the 5 aristocratic families became more and more intense. Not only were the properties of the commoners and small factions stolen, but even the assets of the princess residence were stolen. It was already 3 days later. At this time, the princess residents woke up from their grief. They were shocked by the audacity of the 5 aristocratic families and angry at their despicable and sinister ways. For days ago, they were still working together, but in the blink of an eye, they besieged the princess residence. All of them turned into jackals and wolves, wanting to tear off a big piece of meat from the princess residence. It was truly a case of cooking the hounds after they had outlived their usefulness. Therefore, the people of the princess residence suppressed their grief and started to defend and counterattack. The 6 aristocratic families displayed their abilities and fought in the dark, causing the Tianfeng County city to become even more chaotic. At the same time, Ji Tianqing rode the Black Dragon and was already far away from the Tianfeng County city. The Black Dragon crossed 2 cities and was about to enter the Qianxue County. After crossing 2 more cities and flying for 4 days, he would arrive at the Qianxue County city. During the journey, Ji Tianqing was meditating and cultivating. He had gained a lot from the battle in the wasteland. Not to mention the godhead fragments of the 600 experts, just the godheads of the 7 mid-level godlords were enough for him to cultivate for a long time. In addition, he had also plundered hundreds of interspatial rings from the battlefield. He categorized all the cultivation resources and put them into his own ring. A rough estimate put the value of the ring at around 20 billion. There were tens of billions of god stones, mountains of divine elixirs and talisman materials, and countless divine weapons and equipment. Ji Tianqing kept this huge fortune for now. When he needed it in the future, he would find a way to exchange it for what he needed. After 4 days of cultivation, his strength had improved again. Not only had his divine power doubled, but he had also obtained many nomological laws from the godhead fragments. Now, the number of nomological laws he had mastered had reached 120. This number was already very terrifying. In the entire Bloodfire Divine Kingdom, only a few high-level godlords could condense so many nomological laws. Moreover, Ji Tianqing had not finished refining the godhead fragments in his hands. He estimated that he would be able to refine all of them by the time he arrived at the Qianxue County city. At that time, he would have around 130 nomological laws. That evening, the sun was setting. A dot of light flew down from the sky and landed in front of Ji Tianqing. He quickly ended his cultivation and reached out to grab the jade slip in the spiritual light, using his divine sense to read the information within. When the new commandery princess is appointed, the 5 aristocratic families will have to cut off their flesh and blood. Bai Long nodded repeatedly to express his agreement. That's right. From the incident in Qingshan City, the ruler is someone who cares about the big picture and doesn't care about the small details. However, I am worried that after the Tianfeng province is settled, the prince behind the Bloodsword sect will fan the flames and slander the ruler. At that time, the ruler will be free to deal with you and we will become enemies with the Blood Flame country. With Master around, I am naturally not afraid of a divine kingdom. Even if I become enemies with the entire Great Yan Empire, it won't be a big deal. I am only worried that your plan will be disrupted. Ji Tianqing shook his head and smiled. Don't worry, the ruler isn't that muddle-headed. The Bloodsword sect and the prince want to get rid of me, so how can the ruler be used as a tool? Moreover, it doesn't matter even if things reach that stage. After I deal with Commandery Princess Tianfeng, my next target will be the Bloodsword sect. Seeing how confident Zhang Xian was, the White Dragon's confidence was boosted. No wonder so many experts who are good at concealment and tracking have been following us for the past 3 days. If I'm not wrong, those spies should be from the Bloodsword sect. Even though Commandery Princess Tianfeng is dead, the Bloodsword sect still hasn't given up. Bai Long reported the situation over the past 3 days with a mocking smile on his face. In his opinion, with his master's current strength and methods, he could definitely deal with the Blood Sword sect. Ji Tianqing nodded to express his understanding. After a moment of silence, he added, those spies are mostly from the Blood Sword sect, but not all of them. The matter of Azure Mountain City and Tianfeng City must have been known by many factions. Therefore, those factions will also pay attention to us and send people to secretly follow us. Bai Long was enlightened by Zhu An's reminder. That's right. The Blood Sword sect is one of the 6 great sects, but it isn't the strongest. The Blood Sword sect has allies, but they also have powerful enemies. Since the Blood Sword sect is fighting us to the death and has suffered heavy losses, their enemies will be the ones to fight us to the death. Therefore, the Blood Sword sect's allies and enemies will also pay attention to us. You're worth teaching. Ji Tianqing nodded with satisfaction and smiled. Therefore, they have been waiting for us on that mountain for a long time. With that, he stood up and looked at the mountain 1,000 miles away with a playful gaze. End of chapter. Behind the golden-robed Sir God, there were 4 black-robed elite experts. Everyone's neckline was embroidered with the symbol of a dark red saber. Seeing these 5 people appear, the white dragon and the black dragon were stunned, somewhat in disbelief. Ji Tianqing stopped and turned to look at the middle-aged man with a playful smile on his face. He's actually a high divine lord. That's right. It seems that you are quite sincere. Hearing these 2 sentences, White Dragon and Black Dragon were even more shocked. That dignified golden-robed man was actually a high divine lord. Wasn't this too unbelievable? Ever since everyone entered the divine realm, this was the first time they saw a high divine lord. The golden-robed man flew to the sky above the forest, maintaining a distance of 300 feet from Ji Tianqing. After standing still, he cupped his hands and bowed, saying, Young Master Tianqing is indeed a dragon among men, the most outstanding young expert. I used the Qi concealment art with all my strength, but I still couldn't escape young Master Tianqing's eyes. Such strength and methods make me deeply impressed and gratified. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said indifferently, all right, let's skip the pleasantries and get straight to the point. Which force are you from? Why are you waiting for me here? And who are you? The golden-robed man didn't seem to expect Ji Tianqing to be so confident. Moreover, he wasn't surprised by his arrival, as if he could predict the future. After pondering for a while, the golden-robed man said solemnly, let me introduce myself. I'm Jin Wu, the left emissary of the Blood Blade sect. This time, I've come to the Sky Snow region and waited for young master on this nameless mountain to invite young Master Tianqing to discuss a big matter. Blood Blade sect. Left emissary Jin. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows, a faint smile hanging on his lips. The matter in Azure Mountain City and the Sky Wind region can't be considered small, but it can't be considered big either. At least 3 or 4 of the 6 great sects will pay attention to me. However, the other sects didn't show up, only left emissary Jin representing the Blood Blade sect. If I'm not wrong, the Blood Blade sect and the Blood Sword sect should have the deepest enmity and are like fire and water. As for your so-called big matter, it should have something to do with the Blood Sword sect. Left emissary Jin couldn't help but frown at these words, muttering inwardly, this brat can analyze all these twists and turns with just a few words from me. Is he clever and meticulous, or did he inquire about this beforehand? Left emissary Jin wasn't too sure. After all, many experts and great powers knew about the long-standing enmity between the Blood Blade sect and the Blood Sword sect. If Ji Tianqing had inquired about it beforehand, it wouldn't be strange for him to say it now. But in any case, left emissary Jin could see that this young man wasn't easy to deal with. Ha ha ha. Young Master Tianqing is truly a young talent. Your words alone have made me look at you in a new light. Since we're all smart people, I won't beat around the bush. Young master's guess is correct. The big matter I mentioned is indeed related to the Blood Sword sect. I want to obtain young master's help to exterminate the Blood Sword sect. Left Emissary Jin said with a solemn expression. Ji Tianqing wasn't surprised at all. He was already mentally prepared and said with a playful smile, the 6 great sects have existed for a long time. For nearly 10,000 years, they've existed side by side, and no one has been able to topple the other. It's good that Left Emissary Jin has such lofty aspirations, but I wonder if the Blood Blade sect has the strength to do so. Seeing that he had no intention of refusing, Left Emissary Jin smiled and said confidently, Young Master Tianqing, rest assured. Our sect and the Blood Sword sect have fought for several thousand years, and we've always been evenly matched. From this, it can be seen that our sect and the Blood Sword sect's forces are almost equal. If we can obtain young Master Tianqing's help, we'll have a 90% chance of success. Ji Tianqing only listened and didn't express any opinion. He seemed to be considering it. Left Emissary Jin struck while the iron was hot and threw out his conditions. For 300 years, the right emissary position has been empty, waiting for a true expert. As long as young Master Tianqing nods, our sect will immediately bestow you the position of right emissary. From then on, you'll be the Blood Blade sect's right emissary. In the entire Blood Flame Divine Kingdom, no one will dare to look down on you or provoke you. Furthermore, our sect will provide the most generous conditions and the most abundant resources. Left Emissary Jin was very sincere. However, before he could finish his sentence, Ji Tianqing rejected him. This lord appreciates your sect's good intentions. Unfortunately, this lord doesn't like to submit to others and has no intention of joining any faction for the time being. End of chapter. Chapter 29-21. In the beginning, the discussion went well and seemed to go smoothly. But at the critical moment, Ji Tianqing firmly refused. Left Emissary Jin was stunned for a moment, and a trace of astonishment flashed in his eyes. He secretly cursed in his heart, don't like to be under others. Don't want to join a force. Then when you were in Qingshan City, you were still a consecrator of the Qi family. Of course, these thoughts could only be thought in his heart and could not be spoken out. And this time he came to recruit Ji Tianqing, he had made sufficient preparations. Since the first plan did not work, he immediately changed to the second plan. It turns out that young Master Tianqing is naturally free and likes to be unrestrained. Then it's even easier. You can still be the right emissary of our sect, but only in name. You don't have to report to the sect, and you don't have to stay in the sect. All your actions and freedom will not be interfered with by the sect. But the treatment you will enjoy will not change. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said with a smile, well, this condition sounds quite tempting. I am willing to believe that your sect has indeed come with sincerity. Hearing him say so, Left Emissary Jin showed a spring breeze smile, so, young Master Tianqing agrees. Then let's not delay any longer, you will come back to the sect with me now. Taking over the position of right emissary requires a ceremony and process. However, Ji Tianqing waved his hand again, Left Emissary Jin misunderstands. I still don't want to join the Blood Blade sect, and I don't want to be the right emissary. After all, the title of right emissary of the Blood Blade sect sounds like an evil villain, and it does not suit my temperament and position. The smile on Left Emissary Jin's face suddenly froze. At this moment, he could not help but roar in his heart, and wanted to curse. Just because the name of our sect is unpleasant to hear. What kind of bullshit reason is this? What kind of villain is this? Does not suit your temperament and position. You killed so many people before, and your methods were ruthless. What's the difference between you and a villain? After a while, Left Emissary Jin suppressed the anger in his heart. With a solemn expression, he looked at Ji Tianqing and asked in a deep voice, if that's the case, I would like to know what young Master Tianqing has in mind. You should know your current situation better than I do. The lord of Qingshan City was only a minor character. The king had no reason to punish a newly conferred viscount for such a minor character. That would be slapping his own face. However, Princess Tianfeng was different. She was the Earl of the Divine Nation, one of the 36 feudal officials. It won't be long before the monarch's decree arrives, and it will be very difficult for you to survive in the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. Not to mention, the Blood Sword sect had publicly declared that they would not rest until one of them was dead. No matter how strong you are, how can you contend against the ancient Blood Sword sect? Only by joining our sect and becoming our right emissary can we ensure your safety. Due to certain reasons, the monarch may suppress this matter and let you off. As for the Blood Sword sect, we'll join hands and eliminate them. Left emissary Jin stared at Ji Tianqing with a burning gaze and said in a certain tone, no matter how you look at it, this is the best choice for you. Ji Tianqing said with a spurious smile, that's just your wishful thinking. How much do you know about me? As for the monarch issuing a decree to arrest me, that's even more nonsense. There isn't even any evidence and it's just a groundless accusation. What right do you have to arrest me? Left emissary Jin frowned and stared at Ji Tianqing. He asked in a deep voice, then what does young Master Tianqing mean? He had come to recruit Ji Tianqing because of the Blood Blade sect's master's instructions. Even if he couldn't recruit him, he had to ascertain Ji Tianqing's attitude. At the very least, this person couldn't become enemies with the Blood Blade sect. He had to fight the Blood Sword sect to the end. Only then would the Blood Blade sect benefit the most. Ji Tianqing said with an indifferent expression, I won't join the Blood Blade sect. Tell your master to give up. However, if the Blood Blade sect is sincere, we can cooperate as equals. We can join hands and destroy the Blood Sword sect as quickly as possible. At this point, he waved his hand at left emissary Jin. I'm afraid you can't make the decision on this matter. Pass on my words to the Blood Blade sect's master. Whether or not the Blood Blade sect takes action, I will destroy the Blood Sword sect. You can do as you see fit. With that, Ji Tianqing turned to leave. Left emissary Jin frowned and coldly shouted, wait. Ji Tianqing raised his brows. What? Can you make the decision on behalf of the master? Left emissary Jin avoided the question and said with a solemn tone, you're young and promising, but you're too frivolous. You're alone. Even if you have some strength, you can't compare to our sect. What qualifications do you have to cooperate as equals? Equal cooperation meant that both sides had to contribute the same amount of strength. After destroying the Blood Sword sect, the benefits had to be divided equally. The Blood Blade sect was one of the 6 great sects. How could they agree? Qualifications? Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a meaningful smile. May I ask what rank left emissary Jin's strength is in your sect? Left emissary Jin was stunned for a moment, not quite understanding his intentions. He subconsciously replied, 3rd. Ji Tianqing nodded. Very good. Then you'll know immediately whether or not I have the qualifications to cooperate as equals with the Blood Blade sect. As soon as he finished speaking, he slowly raised his palms and activated his surging divine power. He used his ultimate technique. Take this. Dracophant Divine Fist. Ji Tianqing roared as his fists burst out with a rainbow-colored divine light. 2 mountain-sized dracophants carrying the divine might of 50 laws descended from the sky toward left emissary Jin. The moment he attacked, left emissary Jin understood his intentions. Without any hesitation, he erupted with his full strength and raised his palms to meet the attack. Ancient Divine Blood Blade Slash. The strength of a 7th-level Divine Lord erupted without reservation. An earth-shattering divine might enveloped a radius of a few thousand miles, causing the space to freeze. Two giant blood-red blades that were thousands of feet long slashed toward the Dracophants with a divine might that could destroy everything. Both of them erupted with their full strength and used their most powerful ultimate skills. At this moment, the surrounding thousands of miles were illuminated by divine light. It was extremely dazzling. Kaboom! The Dracophants and the two bloody blades collided fiercely in the sky, creating a deafening explosion that shook the clouds. The next moment, the Dracophants and the bloody blades collapsed at the same time, bursting into shards that blotted out the sky. Violent shockwaves, along with billions of fragments of divine light, spread out in all directions, creating world-destroying hurricanes. The 1,000-foot mountain under everyone's feet was instantly razed to the ground. The surrounding thousands of miles of mountain range was also completely flattened, turning into a desolate ruin. In the shocking storm, Ji Tianqing stood motionless in the sky with a calm expression. However, left emissary Jin was forced back hundreds of feet. He let out a muffled groan and his face turned pale. Without a doubt. He had already been injured by the collision just now. Although it was only a minor injury, he had already lost. P.S. Readers, I am He Wuhan. I recommend a free app that supports downloading, listening to books, zero ads, and multiple reading modes. Please follow, book friends, quickly follow. Chapter 29-22. The divine light in the sky dissipated. The loud noise that reverberated in the sky also gradually disappeared. Above the ruins, peace was restored. The black dragon and the white dragon stopped 200 miles away and were not hurt. The four black-robed experts that left emissary Jin had brought were dispirited and their breaths were disordered. Apparently, they were too close and were injured by the shock wave. However, the four of them couldn't be bothered to heal their injuries. They stared at Ji Tianqing with their mouths agape, their hearts filled with shock. Until now, they still could not believe that left emissary Jin had been defeated. He was the left emissary of the Blood Blade sect, a 7th-degree upper divine lord. Who in the bloody flame divine kingdom did not know left emissary Jin's name? He was definitely one of the top experts in the divine kingdom. But he had been defeated by an unknown young man. This was simply unbelievable. Ji Tianqing and left emissary Jin were standing in the sky and looking at each other from 10 miles away. Ji Tianqing looked indifferent and there was a smile on his face. Left emissary Jin's face was ugly and his eyes were solemn. What kind of monster is this guy? Didn't he represent the Qi family in the martial arts competition more than a month ago? At that time, he had not reached the Divine Lord realm. Now he has the strength of an upper Divine Lord. This is impossible. How can there be such an abnormal genius in the world? Left emissary Jin was silent, but his heart was in turmoil and he could not calm down. Before he met Ji Tianqing, he had investigated Ji Tianqing's information. In the Tianfeng County city, the Tianfeng County princess had gathered 7 mid-level god lords and 700 heavenly god experts to set up a grand formation to ambush Ji Tianqing. In the end, the 7 middle divine lords and many experts were almost annihilated. Princess Tianfeng had sacrificed her own life for this. The most terrifying thing was that Ji Tianqing did not show his face and did not leave any traces. Everyone knew that he was the one who did it, but no one could prove it. Because of this, the Blood Blade sect was determined to recruit him. However, left emissary Jin thought to himself that Ji Tianqing must have used some kind of method to sneak attack him. This did not mean that Ji Tianqing had the strength of an upper divine lord. But now, he had personally exchanged a blow with Ji Tianqing and had even suffered a loss. With the ironclad facts in front of him, he had to admit that Ji Tianqing was indeed very strong. He had the strength of a high divine lord and was qualified to discuss cooperation with the Blood Blade sect. After a long silence, left emissary Jin finally calmed down. He cupped his hands towards Ji Tianqing and said, "Young Master Tianqing, this seat admires you." I will definitely pass on what you just said to the sect master. This time, left emissary Jin's tone and expression carried a hint of respect. His pride as the left emissary of the Blood Blade sect had been completely erased. Ji Tianqing nodded his head slightly and said in an indifferent tone, I will wait for your news in Tianxue County within half a month. I will not wait for any later. With that, he turned and flew towards the black dragon in the distance. Looking at his back, Envoy Jin solemnly said, Young Master Tianqing, don't worry. It won't take as long as half a month. Ji Tianqing did not answer him. Without looking back, he boarded the black dragon and flew towards the south. Left emissary Jin watched the black dragon disappear into the horizon before leaving with the 4 experts. On the black dragon's back, Bai Long looked at Ji Tianqing with scorching eyes and praised, Master is too domineering. That guy was just cocky and in the blink of an eye, he was slapped in the face by you. TSK, left emissary of the Blood Blade sect, a high divine lord, there's nothing great about him. He was still injured by Master in one move and admitted defeat willingly. In Bai Long's heart, Master was always the strongest. When he left Qingshan City, he knew that Master was qualified to do whatever he wanted in the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. But this was a general concept. He wasn't too sure how strong his Master was. Now he knew. Master was stronger than a 7th Heaven Divine Lord and comparable to an 8th Heaven Divine Lord. In the entire Blood Flame Divine Kingdom, there should only be a single-digit number of 8th Heaven Divine Lord experts. Bai Long thought in his heart and looked forward to the next plan more and more. Ji Tianqing did not say anything, nor was he complacent. It was as if to him, defeating Envoy Jin in one move was as simple as eating and drinking, no big deal. He sat cross-legged on the black dragon's back and continued to refine the divine spark fragments to improve his strength. Bai Long stood by the side to protect him, but many thoughts appeared in his mind. There are spies and informants following us all the way. The news of the battle between Master and Envoy Jin just now will soon spread. Not long after, all the major forces and sects will know that Blood Blade sect tried to recruit Master but was rejected by him. The Blood Blade sect's left emissary was not convinced. After exchanging a few moves with his Master, he was injured. In this way, all the major forces will be inexplicably shocked and fear Master even more. Even Blood Sword sect will tremble a few times. However, Master's fame is currently limited to a few counties in the north and those few sections. When Master defeated all the major forces along the way, the royal family of Blood Flame Divine Kingdom will also notice him. At that time, will the monarch try to recruit Master and make him the emperor's son-in-law or a grand marshal? If Master doesn't want to marry the princess, can I, as his disciple, do it for him? Bai Long was lost in his reverie. His handsome face could not help but reveal a trace of a smile. It was a little cheap. For the next few days, the journey was safe and sound. Although there were still a dozen spies following Ji Tianqing, they all kept their distance. However, those spies all kept a distance. They were very secretive and cautious. They didn't dare to reveal any flaws or attack. Even Blood Sword sect temporarily gave up and didn't have any intention of intercepting them. It seemed that the battle between Ji Tianqing and Envoy Jin had indeed intimidated many factions. On the 4th evening, the setting sun was like blood and the cold wind blew. Black Dragon carried Ji Tianqing and smoothly arrived at the heavenly snow county. Before entering the city, Black Dragon and White Dragon returned to the Divine Tower to rest. Ji Tianqing flew through the sky and arrived at the northern gate of the heavenly snow county. Bathing in the setting sun, he quietly sized up the majestic city in front of him. Although this county was the same as the Heavenly Wind County, it was located at the northernmost tip of the boundless heaven continent. However, the Heavenly Snow County was surrounded by majestic mountains and valleys. Unlike the desolation of the Heavenly Wind County, this county was filled with a graceful and luxurious aura. Although they were both ancient cities, the heavenly Snow County's city walls and gates were built more exquisitely. The commoners and gods that entered and exited the city were also dressed in gorgeous and exquisite clothing. Their movements were more elegant. Unlike the people of the heavenly Wind County, they were more valiant and boorish. Ji Tianqing walked along the bluestone paved road toward the 300-meter-tall city gates. Along the way, he thought to himself, the Ning family should have received the news that I caused such a huge commotion in the heavenly Wind County. I wonder if the Ning family still has the guts and courage to accept me as a guest. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, he saw a golden carriage under the city gates pulled by 2 white-winged Pegasi. Chapter 29-23. There were many commoners passing by the city gates. However, no one dared to approach the golden carriage. Their expressions were filled with awe. Even the dozens of city guards turned a blind eye to the carriage. They completely ignored the fact that the carriage was blocking the road and was affecting the commoners' normal movement. It was obvious that the golden carriage represented the nobility. The kind that ordinary people could not afford to offend. Ji Tianqing stared at the carriage and noticed that there was a family emblem engraved on the carriage. If I remember correctly, that should be the Ning family emblem. When he was in Qingshan City, he saw the Ning family's caravan and Ning Xiyuan's sword. It was exactly that emblem. It seems that the Ning family has some courage. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows. His lips curled into a smile as he walked towards the carriage. However, he was stopped when he reached the front of the carriage. 2 of the silver-armored guards guarding the 2 sides of the carriage immediately walked out and stared at him with an unfriendly expression. Please leave. Otherwise, there will be a bloody disaster. Ji Tianqing frowned. He looked at the young guard with a faint smile and said, "Are you a guard of the Ning family? Why are you so arrogant?" The young guard's face was still cold. He said arrogantly, "Since you know that this is the Ning family's carriage, you should know the consequences of provoking the Ning family." Ji Tianqing was too lazy to talk to him. He asked directly, "You stopped here because you were ordered to pick up someone, right?" The young guard glanced at him and said in a low voice, "So what? What does it have to do with you?" Ji Tianqing was not angry. He continued to ask, "The person you want to pick up is young Master Tianqing from Qingshan City, right?" The young guard was stunned. He frowned and said, "So what?" Ji Tianqing was both angry and amused. "I've already said it so clearly. Can you use your brain?" The young guard was stunned again. He still did not understand. The middle-aged guard beside him hurriedly pulled him and whispered, "Don't be rash. Look at the portrait given by the young lady first." The young guard quickly took out a scroll and unfolded a portrait. He compared it with Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing glanced at the scroll. It was indeed him. Of course, it was his image when he was in Qingshan City. The painting was vivid and lifelike. The brushwork was delicate and gentle. It was full of spirit. Ji Tianqing could see that it was the work of a certain woman. The young guard put away the scroll and said with a dark face, "Your Excellency is not the person we are waiting for. Please leave." The middle-aged guard also had his hand on the hilt of his saber as he stared at Ji Tianqing vigilantly. To that. How could he reason with this kind of thing? He couldn't possibly explain to the 2 guards that he had disguised himself in Qingshan City in order to hide his identity from the public. Now that he had left Qingshan City, he wanted to return to his original appearance. Wouldn't he be treated as an idiot? Sigh. Forget it. Ji Tianqing sighed helplessly and turned to leave. He decided not to take the golden carriage. He would walk into the city and then go to the Ning family. This was more low-key. Yes, this excuse was very suitable. However, just as he turned around, the young guard rushed forward and blocked his path again. Kid, you fooled us and you still want to leave? Ji Tianqing resisted the urge to roll his eyes and smiled. Young man, you should feel lucky. I am really the person you are waiting for. Otherwise, I would have killed you with one slap. The young guard had a fiery temper. He had a stomach full of anger. Hearing Ji Tianqing's arrogance, his anger was ignited. You daring little bastard. If I don't teach you a lesson, you won't know the immensity of heaven and earth. As he spoke, the young guard stretched out his left hand and was about to capture Ji Tianqing. His right hand also held a treasured sword and was about to place it on Ji Tianqing's neck. He was very proficient in this set of actions to capture people. It was clean and efficient. However, just as his hand touched Ji Tianqing's sleeve, it was bounced away by an invisible force. Swoosh! He drew an arc in the air and fell directly in front of the carriage, making a muffled, plop, sound. Many silver-armored guards were alarmed. More than a dozen of them pulled out their swords and were about to surround Ji Tianqing. The people and city guards below the city gate also looked over curiously. At this moment, a clear voice sounded from the golden carriage. Stop! It was the voice of a young woman. Like a silver bell, but very cold and contained a bit of dignity. The many silver-armored guards immediately stopped in their tracks and looked respectfully at the carriage. Then, under everyone's respectful gazes, a slim figure lifted the curtain and walked out of the carriage. It was a young woman from the three-eyed god tribe. She was wearing an exquisite and gorgeous silver armor, which showed off her perfect curves. She didn't wear a helmet, revealing her delicate and beautiful face and a fiery red ponytail. Her clear eyes were icy blue, and the third eye on her forehead was shining like a sapphire. Without a doubt, this woman was the eldest daughter of the Ning family, Ning Xiyuan. When she walked out of the carriage and looked at Ji Tianqing, the guards on both sides bowed. Ji Tianqing looked at her and said with a faint smile, Miss Xiyuan, we meet again. Ning Xiyuan frowned slightly and looked at him for a moment. Then, she raised her eyebrows and asked, You are really young Master Tianqing? Ji Tianqing spread out his hands and said, Of course. Ning Xiyuan hesitated for a moment and asked, This is your true face? Ji Tianqing nodded. Ning Xiyuan's eyebrows relaxed and she thought to herself, No wonder I always felt that his previous face was not perfect enough. His current appearance is more like it. It matches his temperament well. Just as she was thinking, Ji Tianqing said again, Whether you believe it or not, let's get on the carriage first. There are too many people here. It's not good to stay for long. As he spoke, he walked toward the golden carriage. When Ning Xiyuan passed by, he threw her a jade slip and said, This is the secret letter you sent to Qi Tianlong. When he finished speaking, he had already stepped into the carriage. Ning Xiyuan took the jade slip and checked it with her divine sense. As expected. She didn't have any doubts and turned to enter the carriage. The silver-armored guards looked at each other, and a look of realization appeared on their faces. Since the eldest daughter was sure there was no problem, there really was no problem. The captain of the guards ordered in a deep voice, Let's go back to the residence. Many guards escorted the carriage, turned around, passed through the city gate, and drove back to the Ning family. The young guard who stopped Ji Tianqing before looked like he had lost his soul. He was so depressed that he was about to cry. The middle-aged guard next to him smiled bitterly and patted him on the shoulder. He comforted him, after returning to the residence, Go to the torture hall to receive 50 lashes. Maybe you can escape this disaster. The young guard's expression became even more depressed, 50 lashes. Isn't that also a disaster? End of chapter. Chapter 29-24. The small episode that happened outside the city gates ended very quickly. It didn't cause much of a commotion, nor did many people pay attention to it. More than 30 silver-armored guards escorted the golden carriage into the city and drove directly into the Ning residence. In the Qianxua County, the residence with the highest status and power was of course the residence of the princess. But other than that, there were also 4 top-notch aristocratic families. In terms of wealth and background, they might not be inferior to the princess residence. These 4 aristocratic families had taken root in the Qianxua County for more than 1,000 years and had a complicated network of relationships. Most of the time, the princess residence had to be courteous to them. Ordinary people didn't dare to rashly provoke these 4 aristocratic families. The Ning family was one of them, and one of the best. The Ning residence was located in the northern part of the city. It was a manor that occupied an area of 10 miles. Not only were there rows upon rows of palaces and houses, there were also pavilions, gardens, and artificial mountains. Even the surroundings of the manor were surrounded by a moat. For thousands of years, the blue water had never stopped flowing. The Ning family was extremely wealthy and powerful. Just the guards and courtyard guards alone numbered more than 1,000. More than 10,000 people lived in the huge manor. Among them, only 1,000 were the direct descendants and collateral descendants of the Ning family. The others were maids, servants, subordinates, and craftsmen of the Ning family. The golden carriage entered the Ning residence, passed through 3 courtyards, a bluestone avenue, a tree-shaded path, and a garden. Finally, it stopped at the 4th courtyard. Ji Tianqing was arranged to stay in the verdant pine courtyard on the east side of the courtyard. This unique and elegant courtyard was specially used to entertain important guests. Not only were there 12 guards, but there were also 4 maids. After Ning Xiyuan arranged everything, he told Ji Tianqing, "Young Master Tianqing, you have come from afar and must be tired from the carriage. Take a bath and rest for a while. After an hour, the banquet will be held in the guest hall next door. At that time, my father will personally accompany you and give you a welcoming dinner." Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "Okay, then you can go." Ning Xiyuan bowed slightly and left. Ji Tianqing entered the bedroom, and the 4 young maids entered in a line. They were holding towels, herbs, and other things in their hands. They were going to help Ji Tianqing bathe and change his clothes. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and dismissed them. There was no need for a bath. For a divine lord powerhouse like him, his body was condensed from pure divine power without any impurities. Even if he had to run around and fight, he only needed to circulate his energy for a moment and his entire body would be clean. After the maids left, he changed into a set of white robes with silver edges. This set of white robes was exquisite in quality, and the style was exquisite and gorgeous. It was not afraid of being burned by water or fire, and it also had a strong defensive power. Within the white robe, there were 9 types of formations that could keep it warm in winter and cool in summer. This was actually a divine lord-level treasure. When Ji Tianqing put on this white robe, he looked even more dignified and handsome. His whole body exuded a noble and unfathomable aura. I've long heard that the Ning clan is rich, far beyond the Qi clan. He didn't expect the Ning family to be so extravagant. Just give me a change of clothes, and they are all monarch-level divine clothes. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and a trace of a smile flashed across his eyes. But in the blood-flame divine country, money alone is not enough. One must have sufficient strength and means to be able to prosper for a few thousand years. I wonder what level the Ning clan's forces have reached. Before coming to the Qianxua County, Qi Tianlong had warned him. Although the Ning clan was one of the 4 big clans in the Qianxua County. In fact, the other 3 big clans were not qualified to be mentioned in the same breath as the Ning clan. Even the princess residence had to be courteous to the Ning clan. Even though Qi Tianlong didn't explain the reason. However, Ji Tianqing could also guess that the Ning clan must have an even stronger backer. That backer's status and power were much higher than the princess of the Qianxua County. Unknowingly, an hour had passed. Night fell. The 2 guards guarding the door came to the bedroom to report. Reporting to young Master Qianqing, the time has come. Please go to the guest hall to attend the banquet. Ji Tianqing stood up and walked out of the bedroom. Under the guidance of the two guards, he went to the guest hall. This magnificent guest hall was in the fourth courtyard. Outside the guest hall was a wide plaza. On the left was the verdant pine courtyard, and on the right was the white orchid courtyard. Both courtyards were used to entertain important guests. What surprised Ji Tianqing was that as soon as he walked out of the verdant pine courtyard, he saw a well-dressed young master walking out of the white orchid courtyard. The young master of the great Yen divine race was wearing a brocade robe and a purple cloak. He was thin and tall, and his actions were dignified and elegant. From inside to outside, he emitted a noble aura and a faint arrogance. Under the guidance of the two guards, the well-dressed young master stepped into the guest hall. The guards and maidservants in the guest hall bowed in unison and said respectfully, "Greetings, young Master Duanmu." The well-dressed young master ignored the crowd and walked straight to the center of the guest hall. He naturally sat on the left side of the table. The seat of honor was the main seat, and the two seats next to the main seat were the most distinguished guest seats. However, between the two seats, the left side was the most important. Therefore, when Ji Tianqing stepped into the guest hall, he could only sit on the right side of the table. The two of them sat at a table that was 10 feet apart. They ignored the delicacies on the table and sized each other up indifferently. Young Master Duanmu glanced at Ji Tianqing. He raised an eyebrow and asked, "You have a dignified appearance and extraordinary appearance, but I don't think you're familiar. Where are you from? Where are you from?" Clearly, young Master Duanmu had seen Ji Tianqing's handsome, heroic, and extraordinary bearing and assumed that he was a noble young master like himself. However, he believed that he knew most of the famous young masters of the aristocratic families in the blood-flame divine nation. Only Ji Tianqing looked unfamiliar. He was puzzled and could not help but ask. Ji Tianqing raised an eyebrow and said indifferently, "I'm Tianqing from Azure Mountain City." Tianqing? Azure Mountain City? Young Master Duanmu frowned and thought for a while before he had a clue. "I've never heard of your name. As for Azure Mountain City, it seems to be a small, remote city in the north of the divine nation, right next to the Sunset Sea region." Ji Tianqing only nodded slightly and kept silent. The other party's words and actions were not extreme, but his arrogance and disdain were emitted from his bones. He was not interested in chatting with him anymore. Young Master Duanmu did not know that. He thought that Ji Tianqing felt inferior because of his low status, so he smiled and advised, "Young Master Tianqing, don't think too much. As the saying goes, heroes don't ask where they come from. Throughout the past 100,000 years, how many god kings and heroes were born in the wilderness and rose from humble beginnings? A talent like young Master Tianqing may have a bright future." Ji Tianqing was too lazy to care about him and did not respond. Young Master Duanmu sneered inwardly, It seems that you remember the saying that the more you speak, the more likely you will make mistakes. You actually ignored me. However, do you think that you can hide your lowly identity and blatant ambition by doing this?" He took out a purple jade folding fan and gently fanned it. He reminded with a smile, "Young Master Tianqing, it's important to know one's own limits. Do not bite off more than you can chew and hope to reach the sky in a single step. There are no shortcuts in this world." Today's 5 chapters, please recommend, monthly, and tips. Thank you. End of chapter. Chapter 29-25. Duanmu Gongzi's words were obviously sarcastic. Ji Tianqing frowned and could no longer remain silent. He stared at the other indifferently and said, "I'm just a guest at the Ning family. You're thinking too much." Duanmu Gongzi waved his fan again, and the smile on his face became even more playful. "Ha ha ha, this Gongzi hasn't said clearly what it is, and you've already denied it. It can be seen that you already have the idea of reaching the heavens in one step. Otherwise, you shouldn't have this reaction, but should be puzzled. No matter how good Ji Tianqing's self-restraint and shrewdness were, he couldn't help but laugh. He said with a playful expression, "This Gongzi has no desires, but you're burning with impatience, jumping up and down. Obviously, you're not confident. No matter what you mean by reaching the heavens in one step. That's all your wishful thinking. This Gongzi disdains to argue with you. In this world, there's no force worthy of this Gongzi currying favor with." These words were very merciless. Duanmu Gongzi's face immediately darkened, and he sneered contemptuously, "Ha ha ha," as expected of a small family from a remote town. "You're so ignorant and frivolous. Since you don't have the idea of climbing up the social ladder, why are you still in the Ning family? Only if you leave the Ning family can you prove that you have no distracting thoughts." Hearing this, Ji Tianqing couldn't help but roll his eyes. "Young man, such a clumsy method of provocation really makes one unable to look straight at it. You're so childish and laughable. You're really wasting your good looks. Of course, in this Gongzi's eyes, your looks are just so. You." Duanmu Gongzi was repeatedly provoked, and his anger rose again. He couldn't help but stand up, about to slam the table and fly into a rage. But at this moment, the voices of the guards and maids sounded at the entrance of the hall. "Greetings to the family head. Greetings to the eldest miss." Without a doubt, Ning Qingang and Ning Siyuan had come. Duanmu Gongzi hurriedly suppressed his anger and recovered his calm, indifferent, and arrogant attitude. Everyone turned to look at the entrance of the hall. A burly and majestic middle-aged man in a purple robe stepped into the hall. This person was over 3 m tall and robust like an iron tower. His limbs were especially thick and developed, and his entire body emanated a ferocious and valiant aura. He was born with a square forehead and a wide face. Under his thick eyebrows that were like treasured blades, he had a pair of dark blue eyes that were as big as copper bells. He strode into the grand hall, cupped his fist and bowed to Ji Tianqing and young master Duanmu, then said with a loud and clear voice, "I was delayed by something just now. I apologize for making you wait for so long." Obviously, this majestic purple-robed man was the current head of the Ning family, Ning Qingang. Behind Ning Qingang was a graceful figure. She was tall and curvy, full of youthful vigor. Tonight, she made an exception and did not wear her silver armor. Instead, she wore an icy blue dress. Her long hair was also tied up in a high bun. Coupled with a gorgeous and exquisite hairpin and head ornament, it added a dignified and noble air. She was the eldest daughter of the Ning family, Ning Siyuan. Seeing Ning Qingang and his daughter enter the grand hall, young master Duanmu hurriedly got up and returned the greeting with a smile. "Uncle Ning, you're too kind. I feel as if I'm bathed in the spring breeze." Ji Tianqing did not say much and only nodded to Ning Qingang. When he looked at young master Duanmu, he found that this person seemed to be exchanging pleasantries with Ning Qingang on the surface, but was actually secretly glancing at Ning Siyuan. Moreover, there was obviously a hint of admiration and affection in the depths of this person's eyes. After exchanging pleasantries, both sides sat down. Ning Qingang sat in the main seat, while young master Duanmu and Ji Tianqing sat on the left and right guest seats respectively. However, the seat that Ning Siyuan chose was thought-provoking. Originally, she could have sat in the lower seat, far away from Ning Qingang, Duanmu, and Ji Tianqing. Young master Duanmu was very attentive and took the initiative to invite her to sit next to him. However, she smiled faintly and shook her head to decline. Then, she actually sat down next to Ji Tianqing. Seeing this, young master Duanmu was startled, and a trace of disappointment flashed across his eyes. Ji Tianqing saw it clearly and roughly understood the reason. "No wonder this little bastard mocked me as soon as we met. It seems that he thinks that I am also pursuing Ning Siyuan and wants me to back out. Ha ha ha." Childish and ridiculous. Ji Tianqing shook his head and could not help but sigh. Ning Xiyuan saw this and asked calmly, "Young Master Tianqing, is there something wrong? Why are you shaking your head and sighing?" Ning Qingang also looked over with a questioning gaze. Before Ji Tianqing could answer, young Master Duanmu explained with a smile, "Little sister Xiyuan, you are overthinking. I guess that tonight's banquet is too sumptuous, and the dishes prepared by your residents are too exquisite. Young Master Tianqing is from Qingshan City and is used to the rough and unrestrained food. I am sure that you are not used to it, so you are shaking your head and sighing." Who couldn't understand such blatant mockery? Ji Tianqing glanced at Duanmu expressionlessly and did not even bother to explain. Ning Qingang looked at Ji Tianqing and then at Duanmu. He frowned secretly and was somewhat worried. Ning Xiyuan looked straight at Duanmu and said in a neither servile nor overbearing tone, "Second Prince, you are the one who is overthinking. Young Master Tianqing is from Qingshan City, but he is not from Qingshan City." Chapter 29-26. Ji Tianqing drank his wine calmly. He had heard everything young Master Duanmu had said and analyzed many things. Concubine Ning. A woman from the Ning family is a princess consort. And the king's favorite concubine. No wonder the Ning family is different from ordinary aristocratic families and has a higher status than the princess's residence. Moreover, the second prince is obviously close to concubine Ning. As for next year's winter solstice, it's Ning Xiyuan's special day. What's going on? Ji Tianqing's expression didn't change as he silently pondered. However, when he glanced at young Master Duanmu, he realized that he was also looking at him. His chin was slightly raised, and his eyes were even more arrogant, as if he was very proud of himself. Or as if he was deliberately showing off in front of him. Ji Tianqing only felt that it was childish and ridiculous and had no interest in talking. Ning Xiyuan looked solemn and said in a serious tone, "Thank you for your concern, second prince, for bringing a gift for Aunt Concubine Ning. However, the Ning family's bloodline problem will be solved by the Ning family, so you don't have to worry about it. Moreover, Xiyuan already had a marriage contract. Everyone knows about this, so how can you go against it? Please face this matter seriously, second prince, and don't have any illusions about the Ning family being unrighteous." Ning Qingang coughed to remind her to save some face for young Master Duanmu, probably because her tone was a little harsh. Young Master Duanmu panicked when he heard that. How could he think too much? He couldn't help but say, "Sister Xiyuan, are you talking about that good-for-nothing Qi from Qingshan City? Your engagement was set by uncle and the Qi family before you were born. Without your consent, how can this matter be taken into account? Moreover, that Qi fellow has a lowly status and weak abilities. His bloodline is also inferior. How can he be worthy of a proud daughter like you?" Before young Master Duanmu could finish, Ning Xiyuan frowned and said in a cold voice, "Enough. Second prince, no matter how useless Qi Huangji is, he is still my fiancé. Moreover, not long ago, the king conferred the title of Viscount to the head of Qingshan City. Your so-called good-for-nothing Qi fellow will inherit the title of Viscount and become the city lord in the future." Young Master Duanmu was stunned. He would never have thought that the always elegant and cold Ning Xiyuan would flip out at him in public for her good-for-nothing fiancé. This was too abnormal. Young Master Duanmu was a little confused. He couldn't help but mutter, "So what if he's a viscount and the city lord? It's just a small, run-down city on the border. How can it be compared to me?" Ning Xiyuan frowned again and wanted to refute. At this time, Ning Qingang said in a dignified tone, "Okay, let's not talk about this anymore." There were still more than 400 days until next year's winter solstice, so there was no hurry. Moreover, the second prince must have come to Tianfeng County for other reasons. Let's end tonight's banquet here. Please go back and rest early, young masters. Ning Qingang knew his daughter's nature very well and knew what kind of person the second prince was. If he continued to be entangled, it would definitely cause even more unpleasant things to happen. Since that was the case, he could only temporarily end the banquet. Ning Qingang got up to see them off. Ji Tianqing and Duanmu cupped their hands and bid farewell. But before the two of them could take a step, Ning Siyuan turned and left first. Her footsteps were hurried, anger still lingering on her face. Ji Tianqing looked at her back and fell into deep thought. Young Master Duanmu also stared at her back as she disappeared into the darkness, feeling a little dejected. As for Ning Qingang, he could only sigh silently in his heart. There was nothing else he could do. After all, the matter of next year's winter solstice not only concerned Ning Siyuan's bloodline and divine path, but also her fate in marriage. Ji Tianqing left the reception hall and walked to the square outside the hall. He was about to return to Qingsong courtyard on the left when young Master Duanmu called out to him. Tianqing, stop. Young Master Duanmu followed and looked at Ji Tianqing with feigned dignity. He asked, that good-for-nothing Qi Huanji has become the young city lord of Qingshan City. And you are also from Qingshan City. What's the relationship between you two? Ji Tianqing sneered with a mocking expression. Qi Huanji didn't offend you, did he? You keep calling him a good-for-nothing to show that you are a noble heir. Young Master Duanmu said coldly, his status is lowly and his bloodline is weak, but he has an engagement with Siyuan. This is blasphemy to the Ning family and Siyuan, which means he has offended me. Ji Tianqing looked at him deeply and said calmly, in my eyes, you are a noble heir with a superior bloodline, but you are not as good as Qi Huanji. At least Qi Huanji knows how to respect others, unlike you who is arrogant and brainless. Young Master Duanmu glared at him and scolded fiercely, you are just a lowly commoner. How dare you humiliate me? If we weren't in Ning Mansion, I would have put you in prison and let you have a taste of the kingdom of God's law. Ji Tianqing looked at him and said with a contemptuous smile, don't find excuses for yourself. I am right here. Why don't you go and put me in prison? You. Young Master Duanmu was even angrier. He subconsciously raised his hand to slap Ji Tianqing. But he didn't lose his mind. He couldn't figure out Ji Tianqing's strength, and he was in Ning Mansion, so he could only suppress his anger and withdraw his hand. Brat. I will remember you. No matter what you came to Ning Mansion for, I will not let you succeed. Also, you better not leave Ning Mansion. Young Master Duanmu hated Qi Huanji. Now that he saw Ji Tianqing protecting Qi Huanji and humiliating him, he hated Ji Tianqing as well. The sneer on Ji Tianqing's face deepened. He said with a contemptuous tone, you are a noble heir, but you have neither brains nor strength. You only want to use your status to oppress others. The funniest thing is that you are overcautious and afraid of everything. You only know how to spout harsh words. You are a disgrace to your father and your grandpa monarch. Young Master Duanmu looked as if he was struck by lightning. His eyes instantly turned blood red, as if he had gone berserk. He was unable to restrain his anger. He glared at Ji Tianqing with a ferocious expression. He said with a hoarse voice, brat. You dare to insult my royal father. You are dead. No one can save you. I will kill you. I will definitely kill you. Young Master Duanmu seemed to have been stabbed in his sore spot. He revealed an extremely ferocious side. In his extreme anger, his entire body trembled, and dark red blood flames ignited. An earth-shattering murderous aura spread. Blood flames accumulated between his palms, and he was about to kill Ji Tianqing. Only then did Ji Tianqing use his divine sense to check his strength. Second-level Divine Monarch Realm. Not bad. But it was only not bad. Young Master Duanmu raised his palms and was about to release blood blades to kill Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing, on the other hand, stood motionless in his original spot. He looked at him with an indifferent expression, without any intention of dodging. At this moment, a dignified and cold voice came from the guest hall. "Stop!" Following the thunderous voice, a ball of dazzling icy blue divine light flew out of the hall and enveloped young Master Duanmu. Chapter 29-27. Ji Tianqing didn't need to look to know that it was Ning Qingang who did it. In fact, he had expected it. After all, he and Duanmu Gongzi had just walked to the square, and Ning Qingang was still in the hall. Swoosh! A blue light flashed. Ning Qingang flew to the square and came to Ji Tianqing and Duanmu Gongzi. Duanmu Gongzi was unharmed. But he was wrapped in the icy light. Not only did his killing intent and anger disappear, but he also calmed down quickly. After 2 short breaths, he closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. Then, the icy blue light dissipated. Ning Qingang waved his hand, and 2 silver-armored guards came to listen to his orders. "Send Duanmu Gongzi back to the guest room and let him rest. No one is to disturb him." The 2 silver-armored guards quickly carried Duanmu Gongzi back to the Bailon yard. Only Ji Tianqing and Ning Qingang were left in the square. Ning Qingang looked at him deeply, then turned and walked to the pine yard. "Mr. Tianqing, I want to talk to you." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and followed him back to the pine yard. They went to the study to talk. The 2 sat down in the study. The guards at the door were dismissed by Ning Qingang. The maids who came to serve tea were also sent away. The people around the study left, and he and Ji Tianqing were alone. They wouldn't be disturbed, and it was impossible for anyone to eavesdrop on their conversation. Ning Qingang looked at Ji Tianqing with shining eyes and said earnestly, "Mr. Tianqing, although this is the first time I've seen you, I've heard about your deeds from Tianlong. Besides, I also know about what happened in Tianfeng County after you left Qingshan City." Ning Qingang directly stated that he knew about Ji Tianqing's deeds and his approximate strength. Thus, the 2 spoke frankly and avoided beating around the bush. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, "I was thinking that the Ning family wouldn't dare to contact me after causing such a big commotion in Tianfeng County. Now it seems that I worried too much." Ning Qingang nodded and said calmly, "Not to mention that you killed a princess, even if you annihilated a sect, the Ning family can handle it. These are all small matters. Only a few forces know about it. The nobles and royalty in the capital don't even pay much attention." Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "In that case, what you want to talk about should be about Mr. Duanmu Gongzi and Miss Siyuan." Ning Qingang nodded again. He said, "The second prince's identity is special to be loved and cared for since he was a child, so he is inevitably a bit arrogant. But everyone will not choose to be two besses. In particular, never mention his father in front of him in the future, that's to his twos to his. Tonight, I will appease his anger and help you suppress this matter. But I won't be able to help you in the future." His gaze left the boundless heaven continent and looked at the upper right corner of the map. It was also a huge continent. The area was similar to the boundless heaven continent, but the shape was different. And this continent's map appeared very crude. It only drew a blurry diagram and marked the words, Qiankuan continent. Apart from this, what regions, what factions, and terrain this continent had, it was all absent. Even, Qiankuan continent, these 4 words had a question mark behind it. It indicated that this name was uncertain. Ji Tianqing looked at the lower left and lower right corners of the map again. Similarly, it was 2 huge continents. Only the rough outlines were drawn, and there was not even a name. Finally, Ji Tianqing looked at the middle of the map. Between the 4 continents was a vast ocean. In the middle of the ocean, there was a very small piece of land. Compared to the boundless heaven continent, this piece of land was 50 times smaller, only equivalent to 2 regions. But this piece of land without a name was marked in bright red. 2 eye-catching large words were written on it. Forbidden Area. Ji Tianqing immediately frowned, remembering this piece of land. He was very clear that the meaning of this forbidden area was different from those forbidden areas on the boundless heaven continent. Ordinary forbidden areas were just some dangerous special regions. Either the environment was vile, or there were powerhouses entrenched, or the geographical environment was special. However, divine kings who were powerful enough could still enter and leave at will, coming and going freely. But that forbidden area in the middle of the map absolutely did not mean this. It most likely meant that it was an absolutely forbidden area to enter. There were great dangers and secrets. End of this chapter. Chapter 29-28. Other than the map, there was also a lot of information in the Jade Scroll. There was a lot of information and it was rather messy. It was basically all information about the boundless heaven continent. There were descriptions of the various regions and records of legends. Ji Tianqing carefully flipped through the pages, paying special attention to the legends from 1,000 years ago and comparing them with the events in his memory. After all, he had set foot on this continent before and had seen a lot of things. But it was a pity. He had read hundreds of legends, but there was only one ambiguous incident that matched his memory of the past. After a long time, he could only end his reading and put away the Jade Scroll. If the map of the God realm that Ning Qingang gave me is real, then there are some changes. The God realm back then did not have 4 continents, and the land area was much larger than it is now. There is also the forbidden land in the middle of the 4 continents that did not exist before. Ji Tianqing stood in front of the window and stared at the night outside, deep in thought. The God realm is an eternal primary world. Logically speaking, the structure of the world should not change. What happened to change the structure of the God realm and make 2 more continents appear out of nowhere? Or perhaps one of the continents in the past was torn in half. Even a peak God king could not tear an entire continent apart. The more he thought about it, the more certain he was that something major must have happened in the God realm after he died. Thinking of this, he thought of the Heaven Punisher race. Right, the mastermind behind the Heaven Punisher race seems to have issued a secret order for the Heaven Punisher race to find the divine diagram. If the divine diagram that God Emperor is looking for is the Heaven Punishing diagram in my hands, that means the changes in the God realm might be related to the Heaven Punishing diagram. Ji Tianqing wanted to return to the peak as soon as possible and find out the truth of what happened 1,000 years ago to take revenge. However, he still knew nothing about the current situation in the God realm. The people and forces that he had come into contact with so far were like frogs at the bottom of a well. Only by continuing to climb higher and come into contact with more powerful forces and experts could he find more clues. At this moment, suddenly, a cold voice echoed in his mind. "Young Master Tianqing, can we meet for a chat?" As soon as Ji Tianqing heard this, he knew that this was Ning Xiyuan's voice transmission from outside the courtyard. He collected his thoughts and thought to himself, that girl Ning Xiyuan, why is she looking for me in the middle of the night again? He replied via telepathy, "All right, Pine Courtyard, study room." Then, he sat on the armchair in the study and waited quietly. About 100 breaths later, Ning Xiyuan pushed open the door and walked into the study. The two of them greeted each other. Ning Xiyuan and Ji Tianqing sat opposite each other with a desk between them. After pondering for a moment, Ning Xiyuan said, "I came late at night mainly to apologize to you. Tonight's banquet was very unpleasant. The reason is that my father didn't think it through and didn't make proper arrangements." Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with a playful smile, "You don't have to apologize. This has nothing to do with you. Just a moment ago, your father told me about this matter. The main reason is because of the second prince, but I won't argue with him. He's just a spoiled child. Ning Xiuan nodded and said, you think so too? Ji Tianqing smiled and said, actually, what kind of person is your father? How could he be negligent in this aspect? I'm well aware that tonight's banquet was both a coincidence and a deliberate arrangement by your father. Ning Xiuan's body shook and a trace of surprise flashed through her eyes. She looked away and asked, why would you think so? Ji Tianqing said with a smile, you should be very familiar with that second prince. Your father also knows his character and ability. Therefore, you and your father both look down on him. No matter how infatuated he is, he'll never be able to marry you. To be more snobbish, he's just an incompetent prince without a father. He'll never be able to ascend the throne. If you really want to climb up the social ladder, you can marry a prince with real power and a bright future. Ning Xiuan hurriedly waved her hands and explained, no, young Master Tianqing misunderstood. I definitely don't have such thoughts. I also don't like the rules of the royal family. Ji Tianqing didn't comment and continued, although the second prince has no chance, he doesn't know his own limits and is always thinking of ways to get close to you. The matter of next year's winter solstice should be related to your cultivation and your marriage. The second prince heard the news from concubine Ning and became anxious. Therefore, he couldn't wait to rush to the Ning residence and express his stance to you and your father. But your father would never agree, and he couldn't refuse him. So, your father used me to punish the second prince. Because your father guessed that the second prince must have seen me as a love rival. When she heard this, Ning Xiuan's expression became somewhat awkward. She muttered, so, you already guessed it? Ji Tianqing spread his hands and asked in return, is it that hard to guess? Apart from that idiot, the second prince, who couldn't tell? Ning Xiuan pursed her lips and asked somewhat nervously, then you won't be angry, right? Why should I be angry? Ji Tianqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This is a love triangle between you, Qi Huangji, and the second prince. What does it have to do with me? Besides, Qi Huangji loves you very much, and you'll abide by the marriage agreement. This is already set in stone. The second prince's love is purely one-sided. Even if I don't attack him, he won't be able to fulfill his wish. For some reason, Ning Xiuan felt a little disappointed when she heard this. Perhaps it was because Ji Tianqing's tone was too relaxed and indifferent. Ning Xiuan asked again in a low voice, but because of me, you're hated by the second prince. This is unfair to you. Don't you hate us? Ji Tianqing took out the dark gold jade slip and waved it in front of her. He smiled and said, your father has already compensated me. We're even. Ning Xiuan frowned slightly and asked again, but don't you want to know what next year's winter solstice means to me? Let me guess. Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and said, it should be a problem with the Ning bloodline. At a certain time, you must fuse with another bloodline to break through the shackles. Only then can you break through to the divine sovereign realm. But fusing with the bloodline means that you have to marry and mix your bloodline with another man. Even though this question was a little embarrassing. However, Ning Xiuan forgot about her embarrassment. Her heart was filled with shock and disbelief. Her first reaction was, you've investigated the mystery of our Ning family's bloodline? Ji Tianqing frowned and spread his hands. Please, I've just arrived at Tianxue County City. How can I investigate your Ning family? Ning Xiuan shook her head repeatedly and exclaimed, this is too inconceivable. You can even guess this? Did someone tell you or did you just guess? Ji Tianqing felt a headache coming on. He said in a mocking tone, Qi Huangji told me. Impossible. Ning Xiuan flatly denied and said resolutely and decisively, let alone him, even Uncle Qi wouldn't know. Ji Tianqing chuckled. Isn't that the end of it? I really just guessed. Forget it, I don't want to argue with you about this. I came to Qianxue County this time to talk business with you. Chapter 29-29. Upon hearing that they were talking about serious matters, Ning Xiyuan wanted to take her leave. Sir Tianqing, it's already late at night. You've traveled for half a month to reach Qianxue County City and haven't had a good rest yet. I won't disturb your rest. If there's anything, let's talk tomorrow. Goodbye. Ning Xiyuan bowed to him and left the study. Ji Tianqing frowned slightly. Looking at her departing back view, he could not help muttering. Why is she a little strange? When talking about her feelings and marriage, she talks non-stop. Once talking about serious matters, she takes her leave in a hurry. What on earth does she want? In Ji Tianqing's impression, Ning Xiyuan was not this kind of sentimental person. In the past, when she was at Qingshan City's Qi family, she was very cold and straightforward. Thinking for a while and not coming to a conclusion, Ji Tianqing simply did not fuss about this matter. He opened the secret door in the corner of the bedroom, entered the secret room, and meditated to cultivate. Although he had already refined all the divine spark fragments he obtained previously. Now, the divine Tao laws that he grasped also reached a shocking 130. But he was still at the second-level Divine Lord realm. There was still a long way to go to the third-level Divine Lord realm. If he did not have any lucky chances, he would probably need to cultivate for several years before he could break through. His interspatial ring stored tens of billions worth of cultivation resources. Therefore, he did not feel any heartache when cultivating, using all kinds of divine crystals and divine pills to his heart's content. A night passed very quickly. The next morning, when the sun rose. In the White Orchid courtyard, Sir Duanmu who was lying on the bed gradually woke up. He slowly opened his eyes and sized up his surroundings. Only then did he discover that he was currently lying in the bedroom. Staring blankly for a moment, he then recalled what happened last night. Ji Tianqing's contemptuous face and insulting words were still vivid in his mind. The moment he recalled, Sir Duanmu still frowned. Anger surged in his heart. However, his current emotions were calmer. Even if he had resentment in his heart, it was not to the extent of finding Ji Tianqing to take revenge. After all, this was the Ning residence. Last night, Ning Qinggang had personally frozen him because he didn't want him to cause trouble in the Ning mansion. Thinking of this, young Master Duanmu's impression of Ning Qinggang dropped a lot. Uncle Ning has always been respectful and courteous to this prince. Because of imperial concubine Ning, the Ning family also took good care of me. But last night, in order to protect that mountain boy, Uncle Ning actually attacked me. Where did that bastard come from? Why did Uncle Ning protect him so much? Even Ning Xiyuan is very protective of him. There must be something wrong here. The more young Master Duanmu thought about it, the angrier he got. He swore in his heart that he would definitely get rid of that brat in the future. At this moment, a burly young man in a green robe strode into the bedroom. Upon seeing that Duanmu Gongzi had already woken up, he hurriedly bowed to greet him. Greetings, second prince. You're finally awake. This young man was young Master Duanmu's personal guard, as well as his trusted aide. After leaving the capital and coming to Qianxue County, he had followed young Master Duanmu all the way. Young Master Duanmu sat on the edge of the bed and said expressionlessly, Hu Lai, how are the preparations for the things I asked you to do? Hu Lai hurriedly bowed and said, Rest assured, young master. Those two things have been prepared. The royal capital had already sent experts, and they were rushing over as fast as they could. As for the business you want to discuss next, the list and conditions have been listed. The contract has also been prepared. Young Master Duanmu nodded slightly. A trace of malevolence flashed across his eyes as he murmured, Unless that boy stays in the Ning residence forever, he can forget about leaving Tianxue County alive. I wonder what the Ning family is thinking. Rejecting that engagement and marrying this crown prince is like joining forces with two strong people. In the future, the Ning family will leave Tianxue County and enter the capital. Becoming a top aristocratic family is also a matter of course. Ha ha ha. I can bring tens of billions worth of business to the Ning family by simply joining hands with a few aristocratic families. What can that uncouth mountain boy do? Even the clothes he is wearing are given by the Ning family. What a joke. In front of his trusted bodyguard, young Master Duanmu did not hide his hatred and contempt for Ji Tianxing. When he mentioned the power of the prince's residence and his prestige among the aristocrats, his expression was full of arrogance and confidence. In his opinion, that nameless brat was not even worthy of carrying his shoes. He was not qualified to compete for the Ning Siyuan and could not be a threat to him. However, Hu Lai's expression was somewhat strange. After hesitating for a moment, he said hesitantly, "Second young master, something happened last night." "I don't know if I should." Young Master Duanmu immediately frowned and asked in a deep voice, "What else happened last night?" "Don't hesitate, speak." Hu Lai hurriedly lowered his head and said in a low voice, "I followed your instructions and secretly watched Pine Tree Courtyard. After you were sent back last night, I saw Master Ning go to Pine Tree Courtyard. He seemed to have met with that boy alone and the two of them had a secret discussion in the study. Not long after, Miss Ning also visited Pine Tree Courtyard and entered the study. They stayed in the study for a long time and I don't know what they were doing. I did not dare to go near to avoid being discovered." After saying this, Hu Lai lowered his head deeply and did not dare to look at young Master Duanmu's expression. The room was dead silent. Young Master Duanmu was silent. As if he was struck by lightning, he stood rooted to the ground and stared blankly ahead. However, his hands were grabbing the edge of the bed especially hard and the veins on the back of his hands were popping out. The expression on his face also became very gloomy and had a trace of malevolence. After a long time, he suppressed his endless anger and sneered while gnashing his teeth, "Ha! A man and a woman alone in a room in the middle of the night and even dismissed all the guards and maids. That damn bastard, he even swore that he had no intention of climbing up the social ladder. How can there be such a shameless person in this world? What is so good about him? He actually made Siyuan speak so bluntly to me and be so attentive to him." Seeing that young Master Duanmu was extremely angry, Hu Lai hurriedly consoled him. "Second prince, please calm down. This is the Ning residence. Even if Miss Ning and that brat had something to do with each other, they would definitely avoid arousing suspicion. It's even more impossible for such a thing to happen. However, I think it's most likely that you humiliated that brat last night. After all, he is a guest of the Ning residence." Miss Ning was afraid that he would not be able to bear the humiliation, so she went to comfort him. Young Master Duanmu became even more furious and sneered. "That brat is shameless. Would he feel that he was humiliated? The one who was humiliated is me. Even if Ning Siyuan wanted to comfort him, why did she have to go in the middle of the night? Moreover, why didn't she meet in the living room but dismissed her servants and had a secret meeting in the study? If she wasn't guilty, why did she have to be so secretive?" Hu Lai was speechless. He understood young Master Duanmu's personality. He was extreme and stubborn. He did not dare to persuade him anymore. Otherwise, young Master Duanmu would be even more irritable. After hesitating for a moment, he asked tentatively, "Second prince, how do you plan to deal with this?" Young Master Duanmu said with a sinister expression, "I want to bathe and change my clothes. I will personally find Ning Qinggang and talk things out with him face to face." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.